call the Finance and Investment Committee meeting to order on Monday, April 15th at 3:30 p.m. And we're good.
All right, so we have 3 items. The first thing we can do is go over the capital budget requests. So there's obviously a big portion of the budget that will be coming before the board in not too long a time. So we'll turn it over to.
Or is it the salaries?
It actually has capital budget is listed first.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, we're actually going to talk about, I kind of reversed those on you, and I don't think I have the page either, unfortunately.
I'm telling Jason to come up now.
Okay.
I told him.
Well, hold on. Wes, do you want to do the salary first? or
Yeah,
the
I'm going to start with
personnel?
the salaries just because the capital kind of feeds into cap fees
Okay.
too, so we'll do that first, but I'm going to print this real quick.
I finally ordered mine. Oh, these are good. You can't see. You don't have
Pass your glasses.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's in this bar up here, Mike?
Mine are more special.
Upstairs, out there.
Absolutely.
Mine are Costco. Slightly further than this.
Slightly longer knuckles.
Okay, I just printed that out so you have a copies. I got 6 of them. I don't need more than that.
Just printed one out.
I don't need coffee.
Page 25 of the upcoming budget, the salaries and benefits, which we're going to be talking about first. You have in your hand the capital, which is the CIP master, pages 34, 35 of the budget. That lists all the projects and their 5-year spending. Before I get into that, and it also has the project pages. Before I get into that, I'm going to talk about salaries and benefits.
Oh, so okay.
So,
Before you get to that.
and Mike's getting it right now for you, and I'll be showing some slides and doing some analysis of that first. 3. Okay, so 2020 budget. First, I'm going to talk about what we've done so far, give a progress update, and we'll talk about salaries and benefits, then we'll go into the capital budget requests, and then we'll go into the budget calendar, the next steps in the budget process. So far we've updated the actuals. We had a meeting in February the 25th, they were the budget calendar and budget versus actual for the last 6 years. We met again in March on the 14th to go over the O&M requests with the O&M manager. Then in April, which is now, we've actually incorporated all the operating budget requests in there and the capital requests, and we've updated the salaries and benefits analysis. So now we're having a meeting on the 15th to talk about that. So here is the page that I just gave you, page 25 of the upcoming budget. This shows the, I have comparisons here that you don't have on your page, but you do have the years together. So what I did was I did a projected versus budget, so how we're doing this year and projected to the end of the year versus the 18-19 budget. And for salaries, we're actually under budget so far this year. We're under budget by $251,000. For benefits, we're under budget by $171,000, and in total, we're under budget by $422,000 projected to the end of this fiscal year. So the next column I want to look at is the budget to budget column, because this is how we budgeted last year and what we're budgeting for this year, and then I'll talk about the changes from year to year. So we can see that for salaries, we're actually budgeting a $484,000 increase from last year to this year. So that's going from $9.7 million to $10.2 million. And it's about a 5% to 4.99% increase. And the benefits are going to increase by $433,000. And the majority of the benefit increase is due to the PERS increase. That's 338 of the 433. So we've already talked a little bit about that, so I won't focus on that. But I do want to get into the salaries increase to look at what's causing that $484,000. So the total increase, budget to budget, is going to be $917,000 from last year to this year. And this.
Do I have a different sheet to what he's talking
No,
about?
well,
Yeah,
what
he doesn't have the comparison.
Yeah, you don't have the comparison, so he's basically comparing those 2 columns, the number he's talking about.
So you have the actual budget page. So what I did is I took the budget page, I added a few columns to the right so we could do some analysis from last year to this year.
Wes, maybe next time we can give them what you're showing, would be
If
helpful.
I'm looking at that, look at this, look at that, going, Glenn's glasses don't even help.
He doesn't have the Google glass?
Yeah.
The rose colored.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to print this out.
Very good.
And I'm happy to print this out and give you a copy before you leave too. I can just reset up an area. So looking at this, what we're going to see what caused the increase in salaries. We have $484,000 increase there, and of that, this slide here is going to kind of break that down. So from last year's budget, we budgeted 4 months of the AGM, and you can see this is 4 months. This year we're budgeting 12 months for the AGM position. That change, those additional 8 months are resulting in $112,000 in additional salary budgeted for this fiscal year. We are adding a new position, the asset management supervisor, for this fiscal year, and that's resulting in $113,000 in salary. The steps for everyone, so if I take everybody's steps for the whole year and I just get rid of anybody who's due for a 5% step from, during this fiscal year, results in an $87,000 increase to the salaries. Other positions, last year we budgeted 6 months for the senior construction systems worker. We filled that position, so now we're budgeting for a full 12 months for this fiscal year. The mechanical maintenance worker 2, same thing. It was 6 months budgeted last year, it's 12 months this year, so that's $34,000. And then the treatment plant operator, same situation, 6 months, 12 months. So the total change just with those positions equals $410,000 of the $484,000 change. There are other changes, but that's kind of the majority of it. I just wanted to break out the major.
Does that include, it says salaries and benefits, is that the total cost to employ somebody?
No, to do benefits are, it says 61% on the page that you have there, but certain benefits aren't variable with salary. Social Security is, for example, PERS is, but like group insurance wouldn't be, the UAL doesn't get affected by different positions. So the percentage is, and the reason I didn't put benefits in here is because, let's see, I want to go back. Am I going the wrong way?
Yeah, you were going, there you go.
Is because the only change in benefits really is PERS. I mean, it's $433,000. These here are the changes that resulted from that. It's, $110,000 maybe. The rest of it's PERS. So we've talked about what causes the increase in PERS. It's actually a change in the UAL. It went from 951 up to 1172 for the year. The percentage for PERS went from 14.389 to 15.3 for this budget year. So those changes in PERS directly resulted in the 338 increase. So that's what caused the benefit increase, but I wanted to focus on the salary increase to show you what made up that $484,000, so you'd have an idea of what was in there.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
Looking at the sheets that I have, projected for this year for water operations is 5.3.
Yes.
Budget for next year is 5.4, an increase of roughly 100,000.
70,000, yep.
When I look at wastewater operations, that's skyrocketed.
No, it's actually decreased.
I look at projected of 3.4 versus a projected of 4.1.
Yes. And that's because we had those 3 positions mainly that were fully funded, or I think there were 4 vacant positions in collections, or 3 last year, that are now fully staffed. So the majority of that, and you'll see the budget, we actually budgeted to have them there longer last year, but they came in, so the projected is $349,000 less than budget for 18-19, because those positions were actually filled later than we thought they would be.
Well, okay. I hate to ask this, but we got along without them last year, why do we need them this year?
Yeah, we fell behind. We started falling behind.
You knew that was coming.
Yeah, no, it's just, we need to be fully staffed in order to stay up with all the regulations, so,
Okay.
we're catching up.
So you fell behind.
Yeah.
Did you ever run look at that mushroom farm?
The one in Twin Oaks?
The big one.
Octoconoko.
Yeah, I talked to that guy when I was in water operations all the time.
Did you ever go out there?
He always offered a tour, and at least I think that's what he was offering. It was really hard to understand. A really strong accent.
Or free mushrooms?
You free mushrooms? I'll take that. I'll take mushrooms.
Thank you.
The portobello mushrooms?
They raise some pretty,
They raise all kinds.
yeah,
of
unique
stuff.
mushrooms,
Sorry,
yeah.
teacher.
Okay, so that's the change in the salaries and benefits. Any other questions on those slides
Well, I got a
before I
couple
move
of
into
questions.
capital?
I bet I can guess one of them.
Yeah. AGM? I don't see one.
No, but we're including it in the budget in the event that we fill the position moving forward.
An AGM and an asset manager supervisor?
Yeah, so the asset management supervisor, I don't know how much, we're gonna have some specific conversations about that position. but
Are we
that-
falling behind?
Well, we don't have we don't have a function that specifically looks at our assets. We have people that maintain them, we have people that design them, we have people that pay for them. but we don't have an asset manager. And that's that's the position that we're focusing, that's the only position that we're actually adding in this year, proposing to add next
So
year.
you're not adding the AGM this year, so why do we have it in the budget?
Well, the AGM position's already there, it's already in the budget. We don't have a body.
It's there, we don't have a body because we have the best GM in the
Yeah.
universe right here.
Flattery will get you nowhere.
Right here.
Yeah.
I'm looking through your rose-colored glasses and I see why.
Those
I-
glasses are back, they need to be
I
cleaned.
see
by
why
now.
you're that good.
But
Okay.
the asset management position, and James and I can address that, it's
Yeah.
certainly something where, we haven't had a formal asset management program. When stuff breaks, we replace it, but we are working, and you'll see in the budget a little later on, we're working to try to, figure out where we're at on the life expectancy of our pipes. You guys are aware of the ones that have been blowing up, and we had some pretty significant ones. So that's what that position would be doing, is going out, looking at our assets, determining the life expectancy of them, and that requires more work than certainly James and I can
I
do.
thought you did that during the inspection process, you're out there inspecting all
That's
the
for-
time.
That's for
Sewer.
sewer, which sewer is
That-
easy.
yeah.
You run a camera, we can tell water lines, no such luck.
That's easy.
It's actually a bigger deal than that, because a full asset management plan is I don't know the exact number, but we have something about $600 million worth of assets. And if you look at replacing them all just based on life expectancy, our reserves are terribly too low. Even our even, you know, and having an arbitrary number of reserves doesn't really make sense. We need a lot more reserves. And if anything fails before life expectancy, it costs our ratepayers, you know, 2, 3, 4 folds on those repair costs compared to you know, extending life and preventing, or hopefully in the future preventing more and more unexpected failures. So with the asset management program, not only will we have a financial tool that finance would get to actually understand the cash flow and reserves, but if you extend the life of the assets beyond their just normal, you know, 30, 40, 50-year life, then you're talking about, you know, not tens, maybe, you know, tens and tens of millions of dollars in savings to our ratepayers, which also will affect future rates. So it's actually an important thing. It's something that we've been kicking the can of since the recession in 2008. It's been the sacrificial lamb, and sooner or later we don't want to be behind the 8 ball, because we have fairly new infrastructure now. I've been saying that we have fairly new infrastructure for, I've been here 14 years, I've been saying it for 14 years. So that fairly new infrastructure is now 14 years older, and it's going to take 4 or 5 years to get an asset management plan fully up to speed, and we don't want to be a city of San Diego type situation.
So we see this asset management as being a group of 3 people. 2 of the positions we already have, so we're gonna take our CMMS, our computerized maintenance management systems operator, and one of our GIS people, and combine them with this asset manager, and that would be a 3-person asset management group. It would focus exclusively on trying to determine what assets need to be addressed next.
And then we're looking at future planning within the engineering department. Engineering department has half its staff retiring in the next 3 years. I've already had 1 leave, and by the end of this year, 2 more are gone. With that, we have 2 GIS personnel, and we needed them to build the GIS and to function it. But the GIS now is fully built, so in the future, we're looking at possibly eliminating one of those GIS positions. So the full-time employees in general, just to be a blip in the engineering, 1 additional and then back down, is what we're looking at.
A quick question with your engineers, and you would know, but can you outsource some of this? Do you have to have it in-house? I mean,
For asset management, yeah,
No.
oh, sorry.
for the other positions you were just talking about, the engineers you have now that are retiring?
Oh, it's mainly technician stuff that retiring. We're not filling all of them. For example, we've reclassified, and instead of hiring, so we're the same staff that we in the middle of the recession. So we've engineering full-time employees down 3. It's only a staff of 15, so down 3 from the height to the recession. And since recession, we've stayed the same, and we've stayed the same by outsourcing, reclassing, and retraining. So basically, we had people who did very specific functions. We've retrained them to do higher level functions, also be able to cover more things. And we've outsourced portions of it. We've reorganized both the whole inspections department as well as the whole development services department. So we're basically doing now, obviously, there's a lot more work than in the middle of the recession, but we're basically, with the same amount of people, being able to cover it all between outsourcing and retraining people. And we're gonna look at every position before we fill it, and that's one of Glenn's edicts, so.
Another question on asset manager, I mean, his whole job is to guesstimate by looking at the facts, like, okay, this pipe should go, so we should replace it. Whether or not it needs to go, we don't know, but we're guessing through the educational process that he should have, that it needs to be replaced.
Well, it's, we're right now, we're working on technologies, so there's technology out there that you can put, basically a sensor down through the pipe, and it can measure the wall thickness of the steel or the ductile iron and tell you, you're at 90%, you've got another 50 years, no problem. Or you're at 5%, this thing's ready to blow, you need to make an emergency repair before it tears up the street. So that's the technology.
So
We're already
So we
starting.
need to invest in that technology.
Yeah.
So that's
Then
what
we don't need to invest in an asset manager.
Well, that's the person that's gonna be.
Yeah,
doing all the
somebody
work.
needs to oversee that whole technology, award the contracts, coordinate the work, review the results, put it into a CIP. It's a full-time job. Asset management is a big job.
Not only that, and don't want to oversimplify it, so we use a full-on computer maintenance and management system to track work orders, to do our maintenance side. So that just is creating a lot of data, is what it's doing. Right now, we're creating a lot of data, and the asset management is kind of being done in-house in people's heads. A lot of those people are retiring, they're passing down knowledge to some extent, and some of them aren't passing down knowledge as much as they can. So we need to capture this into basically a workflow process. And the asset manager, that's going to be one of their primary jobs. Not only do the condition assessment to get that data that we're doing right now in operations already and analyze it. So this way we extend life of assets, we actually replace things on a timely fashion before they break. We understand and try and get ahead of failures. It creates work. It's going to also prioritize work. What do we need to stock? Do we need that much in the warehouse? How many things do we need to actually repair a year to stay ahead? A lot of these things we kind of just do based on historical perspective, or because we have really good personnel who've been here for 20, 30 years that just know it. We're not going to have that in the next 5-6 years, unfortunately.
And the costs we're seeing for some of these repairs, when you look at the Twin Oaks line failure on the San Marcos Boulevard, the cost to repair those were so high. I mean, for the small amount of actual pipe damage that occurred, the damage that it caused at the surface, I mean, what was it, over $1 million combined for those two repairs?
Yeah, and it's
So
30 feet of pipe.
if we had an asset manager, those wouldn't have happened.
I can't guarantee that they wouldn't
That's what
happen,
I'm
but
trying
it
to get at.
increases our likelihood that we would have identified those
Yeah.
issues before they happened, and we could have figured out how to fix it so it didn't cause the catastrophic damage. to the surface.
Obviously, a steel line put in 1957, that's one of the first ones you're gonna wanna look at and say, okay, what's the life expectancy of this? Is it shot? Should we just replace it? Do we need to line it? What's our best bang for the buck? And I know it sounds like we're saying asset manager, but it's asset management supervisor, so it's not a manager level position, but it is something, like James and I, we started looking at this, like you said, during the recession, attended some seminars on it, and we're not completely behind other agencies, but there's a lot of others that are ahead of us on this. And you look, like James said, we don't want to be the city of San Diego. They've got 100-year-old cast iron mains that still popping out of the ground left and right. Now they're spending a lot of money trying to play catch.
To give you an idea, and this is a story that Ed usually likes to bring up, is there was a big city, like St.
Oh.
Louis or something like that, or Baltimore.
It was
that
Baltimore.
They have 1 to 2 breaks going every minute of every day, 7 days a week. So they have crews working 24 hours. They have 3 shifts of crews working constantly breaking. We're never going to get there. We're not that big.
But it's still amazing.
But it
We're not
tells you
that
how
old.
far, or that old, but it still tells you how far we get. And the fact that we've had so many premature ductile iron failures, each one, when you repair it, costs 2 to 3 times of actually, if you schedule a repair, you're compared to a emergency repair. The emergency repair is somewhere between 2 to 3 times the cost in a neighborhood street. If it's on a main street like San Marcos Boulevard, it could be 10 to 20 times the cost. So it ends up, you spend money on it, and then it ends up paying for itself on the back end, but it takes time.
If we'd identified before it broke either of those 2 breaks that I mentioned, it would have probably paid for this position for 2 years.
My question is, had we had an asset manager supervisor, and he had looked at that pipe on San Marcos Boulevard, he would have seen something wrong with it?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
It didn't happen instantaneously, it didn't crack or break
No,
or?
it was
No,
thinning
the,
of material.
yeah, the material was corroding away. So if we'd had the technology, which there exists now, to send it down there, it's kind of a snake. It goes down and it measures the wall thickness of the steel. That had gone, oh, shut it off. You know, because we were able, that section alone, we were able to shut off. We didn't put anybody out of water except I think the fire service.
But not
for
kind
San
of like
Marcos
the
High
water
School.
authority just did to us with,
Yeah.
there's rust, we gotta shut it off.
No, that should never have happened. That's
Okay, I'm just.
But
playing
that's a
devil's
good,
advocate.
that's a good point though, because if we'd have looked at it, if we look at our pipes and we see a little bit of corrosion like that, which is, that's probably less than 1%, but there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's gonna take forever to, you know, you got 100 years of that pipe before it's gonna fail.
Then the recommendation is look at it in another 2 years, see if that corrosion's progressing or is it okay.
Yeah.
So,
I'm intrigued by the position and what you guys are trying to do with it. Is it gonna be done in-house with that team of 3, or are they just gonna manage a bunch of
Well,
contractors?
A little bit of both. I mean, they are gonna coordinate the work of a lot of the consultants that are actually running the condition assessment tools through the pipelines. But they, in conjunction with the consultants, they'll analyze the data that they get out of there and make recommendations.
And right now, the equipment to do that analysis of the pipes, too expensive. It's relatively new technology. But as you guys know, 5-10 years from now, that technology might be something that we'll put in the budget. We'll purchase it and we'll do our own analysis of the pipeline. But right now, for the ductile steel, that's a pretty new technology. So we'll see what happens down the road.
But you see it's something we would do in-house.
It would be something for sure on when they go, oh, we've got a section of line here that it's getting ready to fail. Then in-house, we would go out with our construction crew, we'd
And
see
we're
a
not-
little shutdown and we make a repair or replacement.
And we're not currently analyzing all our system this way.
No, we don't have.
Our water system, we're not. Our wastewater system, we're running.
So then there's gonna be, not just in addition to this position, but all of those, all that contracted labor,
And that's-
consultants.
You'll
That's in
see
the
that,
budget.
you'll see that when we get to the capital
Yeah.
component, you'll see the kind of the corollary, not the personnel side, but the capital side of this.
Or we're getting them a start on it.
My other thing I was thinking is, not sold that we need an AGM, but we can talk about that separately. But if we are gonna get an AGM, you know, that position probably should be somebody that we're looking at, you know, from a succession planning standpoint. And can you get somebody with the right experience and background? I mean, you're basically gonna be hiring like, you know, a head of engineering, a head of operations, can you get someone like that for $112,000?
That's good news if we can.
That's just
That's
the
the
delta.
difference.
That's the delta. What's the amount that we have budgeted?
$168,000. That's the C step for the AGM position.
Boy, I'm sure glad we got an awesome GM, and we don't need that. Give him a car instead.
Okay. Make sure they can't.
No.
Wow.
Get that
No,
Prius,
that's
get that
fair.
Prius,
Yeah.
get that Jeep ready. Get that Jeep ready
Jeep
for
really?
us.
I'll take it. It's a bit of a rough ride.
Okay, anything else before we move on?
No, not for me.
Here's what it is.
Okay, so that's salaries and benefits. Now we're gonna talk about the capital. So this is the big packet that you have, the CIP master. It's a lot of numbers and it's 2 pages. I'm gonna break it out into 4 sections so that we can read it and hopefully understand it.
These all nice numbers?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I know they're good, if they might be, you should have said, no, now I'm concerned.
No, majority of these numbers are Jason and James.
Oh, yeah, right.
So-
How much they charging us for us to read them?
I don't have glasses.
So I'm breaking it into 4 sections. So the first section is going to be the top part. It's your carryover, the first page. It's the carryover projects. These are the projects that were budgeted for in previous years that are carrying over into this year. So they're still going. So the first column here, you can see our previous budget for carryover projects was $54.765 million. Spent to date, we've got $9.7 million. So then the carry forward balance, the difference between those two is the $45 million. So $45 million in carry forward projects. When we look at those projects, or when James and Jason look at those projects, they say, have they changed? We need to add more money to them, or leave them the same, so on and so forth. So this column here is the new request column, and the total new requests or adjustments to existing projects is $1.7 million. Of those requests, there is a $300,000 request to increase the San Marcos Interceptor Phase 2. I'll go through these numbers, and then if you have questions on it, James can actually explain why the requests are being made. I'm also going to talk about the 5-year spending, and questions about that, James can address those as well. So there's a $300,000 request to increase the Interceptor Phase 2. There is a $624,000 request for the sewer rehabilitation repairs, and a $408,000 request to increase the MRF tertiary structural rehab and repairs. And the biggest change in the carry forward projects that I'd like to talk about, just to let you know, is that last year the land outfall gravity sewer section, this was actually just the land outfall, it was budgeted at $45 million. And this year we're actually budgeting at 8.5. The remainder has been moved to future projects because it will not be worked on this year, and it's done in different phases. So they've broken it out into phases and they've moved it into future projects. So when we get to that page, you'll see that future projects have increased by quite a bit, but it's because of the $36 million that was moved from the outfall to future projects. So if you don't have any questions about this, I'll move on to the next one. Next, I'm going to talk about the 5-year spending for these projects.
Yeah, is this supposed to be read like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it's set up in the budget. That's just kind of
Yeah, I have a question.
okay.
I guess for James. So James, out of the 3 big ones you have here, what would you do if you couldn't do 2 of them?
Well, let's talk about that first land outfall. Land outfall, we already had a spill this year on it, so we know we have to do it because when it rains a lot, we have to do it. So we can keep on pushing it back, and then we just have to get spills. So
Did you have the spill because of a clog? Did you have the spill?
capacity.
The capacity spill.
It's capacity. Yeah, land outfall reaches capacity when it rains a lot. Now, most years it doesn't rain, but Valentine's Day did. The Valentine's Day event.
Valentine's Day
Happy
Massacre.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, exactly. We actually did spill at the land outfall. So our choice is we can always push that back.
That was in his neighborhood, though, right?
Yep.
Yeah, real close. So yeah, it's priorities. So the Interceptor, that's a green light. That's the one that's tied in with the city of San Marcos
Right.
project, and finally that creek project with the bridges is going forward, and we're tied in with them. So we need to go forward on that one. If we don't,
Well, they say it's going forward. Have you seen anything over out there
they're bidding, and we got their bid package.
other than orange fencing that's been out
Yeah.
there for 6 months?
So we got their bid package, and they got their environmental permits all approved now. So if they don't go forward, it's because the city council says stop. At this point, there's nothing else to stop it.
Which one's this one?
The bridges across Bent
Oh, the
and
bridges,
Beaver. Yeah, not the whole creek district, but those triggered environmental, which we're tied into, to get this project done. So, and we're basically ready to bid out this project in the next several months. So we're basically at
To get which project?
San Marcos Interceptor.
Interceptor phase
number
2.
Number 2. And number 3 is Encina, right? So that's kind of, I got to talk to our delegate at Encina about that one.
That's well worthwhile, okay.
So, but yeah, so the Interceptor, the Outfall is a project that can drag. It creates an operation issue if there's a big rain event, and we know we'll spill. And as a matter of fact, we had to turn in the thing to the regional board this year of what we're going to do to try and prevent spills. So,
Yeah, so just at the end of last week, we got a notice of violation regarding that spill and the one that occurred off of the Techite line, right?
Yeah.
So we have to do some reporting to them, and the 3 things they look for is what happened, what did you do about it, and how do you prevent it from ever happening again? And that's what this does, is hopefully address that. How do you keep this from ever happening again?
to kind of put hopefully a bright side to these costs is the new proposed master plan split the outflow up into several different projects, which really helps on the cash flow basis. Instead of spending $44 million in the next 6 or 7 years, we spread this thing out over 20 years. So to just hit those critical areas only.
So from there, I'm going to take the carry forward projects and just show you the 5-year spending plan from that. These all come from the CIP pages that are behind this, and I'll actually kind of go and talk a little bit about those pages.
Sorry, I have one more question. I had 3 questions on that. The third one was number 55, tertiary structure rehab and repairs, $400,000.
Jason, you want to touch on that one, or is that
This is done in Meadowlark again. Meadowlark is very expensive.
It's an asset. Assets do cost lots of money.
It's questionable whether it's an asset or not, isn't it?
Yeah, that project is several projects that we had that we basically decided to lump into one project to sort of get, basically a better price, sort of a volume price. And it's just a number of, as you know, it's a caustic environment down there, so we have concrete getting eaten away, structural concrete that we need to repair, some linings that need to be repaired, a sluice gate right now is broken, needs to get repaired, placed. So it's just kind of lumping all these little projects that are all in that tertiary phase of the plant and putting them into one job. Trying to get one contractor instead of doing it in.
The chlorine contact tanks down there, they're 1982, and some of it's original 1966, I believe. And for example, the concrete's spalling up, and the actual gates that separate the chambers, they've come up twice. So I know I've done 2 Band-Aids there in the last 14 years. So it's just getting to the point where we need to do something down there.
I'm not saying it's not needed. My overall question is gonna always go back to, we're losing money at this. And at one time, 4 or 5 years ago, they looked into EWA taking it over, and that didn't happen. I wasn't privy as to why and what the problem was, but I know EWA looked into it at pretty much in depth, and Vallecitos chose not to do that. And my question is, does anybody know why? And is that still not a bad idea to get rid of it? Because it's in my opinion, it's a cost loss to our customers.
Yeah, before my time, I don't know anything about that.
And I wasn't in the sewer side at that point when they did
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, is there anybody left from that era?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, it's just a thought, it's worthwhile looking
I
at
mean,
it
just-
again. They already do 2 or 3 other plants for other people. And maybe it's time, because now, not only do we do a big addition to it, which cost a lot of money, much more than was budgeted for, and we're buried in it. And now we're gonna continually have these costs that we're not being reimbursed for, and it's costing our customer base money to operate when you add all these costs into it that are happening. And my question is it worth it?
Would it be less money just to send everything to Encina and just decommission?
Maybe not.
No, because I mean, you can't get it there. I mean, you'd have to do that whole $44 million outfall much sooner, and even make it bigger, because you have to convey it there, right? You need a huge pump station to pump it there, because it doesn't flow by gravity. So Metal Art's in a hole, kind of like Lake San Marcos. So you got to take it there, and you got to pump it up and over the hill, up and over, basically Melrose. So it's, when we looked at it, I mean, you're kind of decommissioning a $30 million upgrade and building $50 to $60 million of assets to get it. So, and
Yeah, and I just asked the question just to
yeah.
play devil's advocate. I personally like the idea that we have metal art, that we're recycling at least a portion of our own wastewater, and I like how we're reselling the recycled water. And so I don't want to get anybody scared. It's just a question you have to ask, right?
Absolutely, and to kind of address
My question is not decommissioning. My is, should we pass over the headache?
well, that's a question for the board, and yeah, you guys got. But to kind of address one part of your question is the general manager and myself, and also Wes, we're actually in the middle of doing the contract renegotiations to make sure that any capital expenditures we're getting reimbursed for at Metal Arc. So
Okay.
anything that's tertiary, recycled water. That we're
Which
getting-
this project is 100%
Which this
tertiary.
project
Yep.
is.
Yep.
Right.
It is.
But we're not getting it now.
No,
The
but
question is, you're trying to negotiate that we get in the future, but you don't know if we're gonna get it or not for this project. You don't know what that negotiation is gonna come out to be.
absolutely, and we would push this project off if we could, but it's getting to the point where that facility is getting fairly critical. So, because I think the supervisors put it in the budget 3 or 4 times now. We pushed it off 3 or 4 times. Ed would know better
Yeah,
than I would.
we have, yeah.
But I think it's worthwhile looking at. EWA does it for other people, and apparently it saves them money. They probably wouldn't do that. They operate it and get away from it. I mean, I like the idea that it's being done. I don't want to stop it from being done, but maybe we have someone else manage it to save us a lot of money, because we don't have the employees, we don't have that cost. We pay EWA.
Wouldn't we still
whatever.
be, wouldn't we still be paying it, just we'd be paying you instead of our our employees.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, that was the
Yeah,
last
I don't know if
That's-
there's a benefit in size with this, with the amount of operations they do. They only need one supervisor for 4 instead of one supervisor at each plant. I don't know. But I know that we looked into it, but I never heard at least I was told we looked into it, whether they did or not, I don't know. But I was told they did. But it was worthwhile looking into it, in my opinion, from their standpoint. That's their business, you know? So,
It's
just a
ours too.
thought.
It's our business too.
It's our business now, but it doesn't have to be. We don't have to be in that business. Not if it's costing everyone money. I'm done.
So if we look at the carry forward projects of $45 million balance plus the $1.7 million new request, it's around $47 million, but that $47 million won't be all be spent in 1920. So we have the 5-year plan with the breakout. That's what this slide shows. So in 1920, we're going to be spending $15.6 million of that $47 million. And that's shown here in this line. Those are just the carry forward projects. Of that 15.5, the biggest portion is the San Marcos Interceptor, which is planned to be completed this fiscal year, so in 1920, and that's $6.4 million.
Next
Well,
yeah.
this
Like,
fiscal
that's
year,
what you're
we're
talking
The
about,
budget,
yeah.
we're
yes.
budgeting for
Yep, got
1920. So, and Encina is actually, we're gonna be paying them $1.9 million for capital projects in the next quarter, or in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 19. And then, the MRF biological selector improvements are $1.8 million for 1920.
And however, the board may recall, we're not going to actually spend that money unless we get the agreement that says we're gonna get reimbursed for it. So we're just doing the $100,000 study, and then if we don't get an agreement, that money won't be realized.
And that's the 5-year plan for the carry forward projects. And you can see we're spending $10 million in 2021, about $4 million the following year, $6 million after that, and so on and so forth. So the next section of the capital budget is the new request. So that's the bottom section of your first page, and then I'll go into the 5-year funding of those new requests. So the total new request for 1920 is $100 million. Of that $100 million, you've got Encina at $25.6 million and future projects of $61.9 million. Those come out to be $87.5 million. So the total remaining, there are 27 new project requests, and they equal $12.8 million. So if you take out Encina and take out the future projects, you get the $12.8 million. How does that compare to previous years? Well, last year we had 12 new requests at $2.4 million. The previous year we had 25 new requests at $5.5 million. So, looking at this, now we have both the carry forward projects of the $45 million and the $102 million of new requests, and which includes the budget adjustments to carry forward projects. So the total capital budget for this fiscal year and the 5-year plan is going to be $147 million. That's not just for 1920 though. We're going to fund that over 5 years. So I'll show you how that's going to be funded in just a minute.
So some of the future projects go beyond 5 years though.
Correct.
So it's not all within 5 years, because a lot of that $60 million is 10 plus years.
I was gonna ask, so what do you, it's interesting that 2 years ago you had 50 million, last year you had 5 million. What do you attribute that to? More realistic?
It's all based on the amount of requests we get from engineering and operations.
But more realistic as to what finds its way here versus it was unrealistic back then, 'cause there was so much more. We couldn't have done everything.
And it's also the cycle, so we've been doing a lot of design, and now we're going into construction. So for the same workload of what staff can handle, staff can only handle a certain amount of workload. But if it's in construction, if it's design, that workload may only equate to $100,000 or $150,000 on a project. But if it's in construction, it could be $5-6 million on a project, because now you have a contract to actually mobilize.
So the bathrooms are done.
The bathrooms are done. They're actually coming to the board.
Next, not this meeting, but the following.
Yeah.
They move in today, don't they?
I haven't had time to tell them.
That must have been a big load of engineering. I know you had all your guys working on
We
it
could
day
probably,
and night.
we could
Not our
probably
guys.
make some of the budget
These
money
guys
if I
actually.
just sell rights to who gets to go first and pick their locker.
There you go.
Or make it a pay-per-view wrestling match.
Heard your personal secrets.
So a lot of what's being requested this year, I believe, has to do, is related to the asset management
Absolutely.
project. So if you notice, a lot of these steel pipeline condition assessments for almost $1 million. There's the fail-safe Buena condition assessment for $1.2 million. There are a lot of condition assessments that are happening and being requested for this fiscal year that were not requested in previous fiscal
So
years.
if we don't approve the position, then we save that money as well.
Yep.
You'll save some of it for sure.
Good enough.
Then you'll pay it when the line's filled.
Yeah, please don't.
You know, I'm gonna make this a very short story. Yesterday I had to have my brakes repaired on my vehicle. And I've never done this before. And I was at the Toyota dealership and I said, you know what, save the old pads and show them to me. Certainly we can do that. So when it came time, you brought out the old pads and they were about 2/3 of the way done. Still a third was there.
They did it early.
That's the problem with assessments, because their assessment was, I needed them, I was down to 10%. But my eyeballing goes, no, there's only a third left. So anyhow, I know you have guys checking that, but an assessment manager, his job is to find something to do. Right.
So in the funding for the new project request, this shows the 5-year spending plan for that. The total, here's the $100 million in total new requests. And in 1920, we have a plan to spend 9.7 million of that $100 million. And of the 147, $25 million we spent, 25.3 will be spent in 1920. And that's 25 in 1920, it's 21 in 2021, and 14, 17, so on and so forth. In the outer years, you get a lot of the future projects, so there's like the 35.4 and 24 to 29. And something I thought was interesting is, of the new requests spending, it's approximately between like $9 and $12 million. $5 million of that is Encino almost every year. So you can see in 23, 24, it's $6 million, but that's actually 23 million, but $5 million of
I don't think
almost
they're
12 million.
And I know these are big numbers, but this is a positive thing. I mean, we're investing $25 million next fiscal year in the infrastructure for our customers. That's an investment in our customers. Because water and wastewater infrastructure is absolutely critical, and our customers wouldn't want us to go cheap on their infrastructure.
It's a good message, it needs to be out there.
Yeah, we gotta talk to Chris.
It really
That's a
is.
good message. Good job, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Well, what do we get, the engineering report for grade and water wastewater infrastructure?
D.
Is it a D?
D minus.
Or D
D
minus?
minus.
Percentage of hike.
But
That's nationwide.
But
It's still
I'm part of that survey, by the way, and I gave our infrastructure C plus.
All right, that's what I
Yeah.
would've given.
Yeah, I gave our infrastructure C plus and B minus, water sewer. So
So from there, I just wanted to show you, and probably should have started with the thing Glenn actually mentioned, it would have been a good idea, but this is the source page for that CIP master. So how we develop that really is Jason and other supervisors and managers go into our e-logger system and they develop these pages that request to actually give a description of each project. So there's a description up top, the comments which goes into detail about what the project is for. So you have the description here, the project manager, it's assigned a project number, the department location and the funding source, whether it's replacement or capacity, and water or sewer. And then the comments are really a full-on description, a detailed description of what the project will do, and it talks about the operational impacts as well. And then this project spending plan here is what feeds that CIP master for the 5-year spending plan for each section. And then you can see 1920, there's a budget request here. If it's new, it's the full request. If it's a change from last year, there'll be something, otherwise it'd be a zero if it's the same as the previous budget. And then you have the timeline of the project. So it started in July 2018 and it'll be finished in June 2020. The project approval is typically, unless it's a carryover, it's that fiscal year that the board approves the budget. So those are the CIP pages. They feed the CIP master. That's that section. Next, I'm going to talk about the vehicles and equipment requests for the current fiscal year, and that'll complete the capital portion of the budget requests. So if you don't have any questions about this, I'll move on to that.
Wes, when are we gonna talk about the cash flow and the fact that this is preliminary and we're gonna be looking before it comes back to the board for a full?
So these are the budget requests. What we do from here, and this will be shown in the budget calendar that I'll talk about in a minute. From here, we developed the long-range plan, which shows the revenues coming into the reserves, which would be the operation transfers, or operating transfers, the capacity fees, property taxes, other revenues coming in, and the distributions which are spent on the projects for replacement or capacity. That shows the reserve balances, and we forecast that for 5
And
years.
that's coming up next.
And that'll be in the next committee meeting.
Two weeks from today is when we're gonna talk about that. So you're looking at the preliminary request, and over the next 2 weeks, we're gonna be massaging it to see how much can we, either staff capacity or financial capacity, can we actually absorb, and will definitely be a redistribution of some of the timing of some of these projects based on that analysis.
And typically, things get moved around based on the cash flow analysis of what we think we can do.
I have a question on CIP. Land outfall clearing access road,
Yes.
page 48. I guess my question, I don't know. Clearing for the access road impacts is estimated as 1 acre of designated wetland, the cost of approximately $600,000.
Yeah. So one
What do you
acre,
have to do?
of, 1 acre of wetland. So it's over there, just east of Costco, south of Palomar Airport Road. It's a designated wetland habitat area that's actually a mitigation bank. Our easement's there, but you can't get to everything. So you can't get to the manholes, you can't get to, you can't drive it, you can't access it. So we need to go in there and actually get access to it, because it's a known condition. So if we were to have a clog or a break, the environmental agencies in this case, they don't care, because they go, you know you have access issues, so since you know in advance, you need to go do the right thing and get permits and do everything to get it. So we've been working, this project started before I started here. So it's over 14 years old.
Yeah.
And we've been working with the environmental agencies and mainly Army Corps of Engineers to get access there. So what we finally got about 7 years ago, was it's going to be a rock road with certain with culverts to make sure the water flows through. So it's going to be basically a 3-4 season access, mainly a rock road that's within the easement. The good news about it is the agencies want a 3-to-1 mitigation. So at $600,000 an acre, you can imagine it's a lot of money. And we convinced them Rob Scholl convinced them just about 2 months ago to do a 1-to-1 mitigation. So it's still several $100,000 for that 1-to-1 mitigation. But you can imagine, so the whole cost of the project is mitigation property. Good news for us is it's right in that CIP sheet in the description. Is Buena's paying for 66% of it, and
Right.
Carlsbad's paying for.
What you
so-
see is the full cost.
Yeah.
We're paying 20%.
We're
Yeah.
paying 20% of that.
Yeah, so the full cost, and then we get reimbursed, and that's we have a agency agreement on the outfall. We own, operate it, we incur the expenses, they're obligated to, per the agreement already.
So what cost is on here?
The full cost is on there, and then we get reimbursed.
Because we're the lead, we're doing the project.
Where does it show the reimbursement? And are there other projects that we're getting reimbursed for?
Yes, yes, there are.
And where would they be, and how would we know we're getting reimbursed if it doesn't show on your lovely sheet?
Typically, it actually go through like a grant revenue, or it offset the cost of the project, depending on how we're going to treat it and whether or not we know we're going to get the reimbursement for it.
Okay, this one you know you're gonna get reimbursed for, but there's no minus off of the CIP for it, correct?
Yeah, in the past, we've done, and it's gone under John, we've done in the past, so it'll change, but it takes a year to get reimbursement, so we put a minus something here to kind of indicate it in the budget sheet. But as far as accounting practices, I don't know those.
And if we get reimbursed after the project's completed, we have to spend the money first, so we would actually plan to have it in revenue the following year as far as the transfer and the replacement revenues. We wouldn't, you need to have the money outflowed in the year that it actually is spent, so you need to budget for it that way. But if we think we're gonna get it the following year, we go into the revenues of the reserve page. So when you look at the reserve pages, which we don't have here today, but we will show in the draft budget at the next meeting, the revenues are actually, there's like grant revenue, which would be the offset costs of projects like that if they're in the next year.
Wes, how hard would it be to add a column or something that showed potential revenue recovery? I know we have to budget the full amount for the lead and go do the project and we'll get it back, but per Director Martin's concern, how do we quickly demonstrate to the board that there's revenue, offsetting revenue?
So what I would recommend in that case is if we know we're gonna get the reimbursement in the same year that we're spending the money, I would actually just put it in the description that this will be offset by a reimbursement, blah, blah, blah. and then I would actually reduce the cost of construction in that year by that amount.
Could you put it on some of the summary sheets though, so I don't know that they're gonna wanna look page by page on the detail, but in the
Right.
summary sheet, it had a column that showed reimbursement, potential reimbursement. I'm less worried about the actual timing than the fact that we're gonna get it back. I mean, if we get it a year later, at least we got it.
Yeah. Well, the year later, it has to go into revenues because it's recognized differently, so that would have to
Right.
go in the upper half. But in this case, instead of adding a different line for it, I would just net it against it, and that way you'd see the cost, it'd be different on the page, but actually it would be the same.
There's no guarantee we're gonna end the same fiscal year though.
No,
Yeah.
No.
No,
You
no,
get a
for,
different year.
so you wouldn't end up netting it on the column, is what I'm saying.
Oh, what you could do is you could put in the next year the spending as a negative possibly.
yeah, I'm less worried about it in terms of the actual budget document, more just informational to the board to help them understand that this project isn't really $1 million
Yeah.
from our perspective, it's actually less.
Yeah, I mean, we could
Much
do it,
less.
so you'd either net it here against this, or you put it here as a negative. And that would reduce the total cost of the project here, either way.
We'll come up with a way to better demonstrate this to the board.
Cause then you have to look at every sheet.
Yeah, we don't want you to have to look at every sheet. I think on the summary sheet, if there's a column that showed which ones where we think we'll get reimbursement, whether it's in the same fiscal year or not.
Well, and then you wouldn't, so if you did it that way, either way on the CIP master, this would be, say it was 500,000, this would be 1.262 on the CIP master, which would show a lower cost.
Right.
Or here you'd see a negative, and on the CIP master you'd see a negative. So you wouldn't have to go to the individual project page, it would be actually listed there as a lower cost of the project. And I think that'd probably be the best way to do it for these.
How come, like this project specifically, since we know that there's other agencies that are going to be involved, why wouldn't we just have them pay for their share of the project right up front? Why are we fronting it?
Well, so the way the current agreement is set up is we front it and they pay us back in the revenue, so in the recycled water rate cost. So when we wholesale it to them, the addition of the capital items that we put through with the depreciation schedule, they pay for every year. So if this is a 20-year project, they pay every year. Is that how it's on the capital reserves? I want to make sure I get that right. And then they reimburse us. That's the way it's set up in the current agreement. So we're structuring everything with the current agreement because there's no guarantee that we're going to get them to agree to a completely new agreement. But within the current agreement, we can still get reimbursed.
What about the land outfall clearing?
The land outfall clearing, the agreement allows us to get reimbursed. It's not a
After the fact.
amortization cost. This is recycled water
Yeah.
rates. So this is based on the recycled water rate. The other one,
Project, yeah,
the other, the
Yeah,
land
but
I
out-
think
the land
Director
outfall.
said was mentally.
yeah.
set
Oh,
on
sorry, I
land
thought you were
outfall.
looking at
Yeah,
this.
sorry.
So that one, the way the agreement's set is we do it and then we show invoices, prove our costs, and then they write us a check. That's the way the
So it's
agreement.
pretty immediate. I mean,
Yeah, it's, I mean, as immediate as they process it, but in theory, it should be
They
60
probably have
days.
30 or 60 days.
Yeah, they have 60 days in theory. So, but, what'll end up happening is they'll ask for questions and clarifications.
So we let them know. so
But that's how it's
budget.
written in the original agreement, that
Yeah.
1981 agreement or whatever.
Yep.
that- yeah.
So each project that we set up per the existing agreement on how it works. Obviously, if we get a different agreement or something new, we change the format.
And you use those engineering rates that you talked about with us to build
Yes.
them?
Our
overhead
engineering
rates?
rates are
Yeah, the
cheap compared to
overhead
theirs,
rates.
so.
Okay, we just sent Buena that bill for the repair on the failsafe, and we included all our operating rates, all our engineering
Overhead.
rates with the overhead, our equipment rates.
Okay.
Yeah, because when ops goes out there,
Paying the full loaded
they have
price.
overhead, it's full loader rate for their equipment and everything too, so.
Good.
Okay, so next is the vehicles and equipment. So as the district's vehicles and equipment age, we have to look at their condition, their mileage, stuff like that, and see if we need to replace them. And every year, the supervisors and managers actually submit requests with justification for replacement of vehicles and equipment. And this page here shows those requests. And the column here shows the existing vehicle that will be replaced, and it says whether it's new or replacement. You can see we only have two new requests this year, here and here. The rest are all replacement. And the total for replacement requests this year is $687,500. Last year, we had $778,000 in requests, so it's actually down $90,000. So less vehicles and equipment need to be replaced this year.
And that was done without an asset manager?
With
Yeah.
it was done with Ed,
Yeah,
the asset
yeah,
manager.
okay.
Yeah.
The one
So-
that's gone.
So of the 687,500, the
Give me a
largest
call.
request. The largest request this year is a replacement of the Vector 850, which is vehicle number 183. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say about that, unless you have questions.
I'd like Ed to talk a little bit more about that top item.
Yeah, so our wastewater collection supervisor came to me over a year ago. 183 is the current Vector we have, so it's a combination truck. So it has the jet rotor that goes through and cleans, then it also has a huge vacuum that pulls up any debris that they can bring back to the manhole. We're getting through our system quite well now, and with the crews that we have, so there's less and less debris, and I also would attribute that to our public relations department, less people putting eggshells and coffee grounds and stuff down into the sewer line. So the times that we need to actually vector something up with the vacuum part is less and less. They have tools that they can use manually and do it without having to set everything up for that to work. The jet rotor, so this Vector 850 series, it is just the jet rotor. It does not have the vacuum on it. It's a much smaller truck. It actually holds more water, so it means less downtime going and refilling at the fire hydrants. And it's about $200,000 less than a new combination truck. They're about $500,000. So we're saving the ratepayers over $200,000 by doing this. It's a smaller
Are
rig.
we gonna keep this one?
No, 183's got to go.
We don't need the.
We should have probably done this last year. but
We still have
how
a
many
combination
do we have?
vehicle.
We have three. I'm not sure. 183 is about 15 years old, I think. But it's getting too much on repairs, and we have to send it out to Haker, which is the company that builds these things. Yeah, so it's expensive. Repairs are
But it's
expensive.
our only one, that was mine.
No, we have three. We have
So
three.
we'll still have two, and we'll have this jet rotor.
Yep. So.
Okay.
Now, so this doesn't do the same thing as the other two?
It does, except for the vacuum portion of it, but like I said, we still have two that have the vacuum. So if we find an area where we're getting more debris, we'll assign that combination truck to there. But some of the newer lines, the San Leo Hills and stuff like that, where maybe the lines aren't as old, there's not as much of the problems with the pipe. And also, the city's building these roads smaller and smaller, and we get these roundabouts. These combination trucks are huge. It's difficult for them to navigate through here. So the jet rotor we could probably assign to those streets where it's less intrusive, customers can get around easier. There's a lot of pluses to this. I was really happy that our supervisor brought this to my attention, and then Glenn and I talked about it. It's a savings, and we can do the job more efficiently. There's some easements that we can't get the combination trucks, and then we have to pull a trailer with a different type of jet rotor
When
on
you-
it. We'd probably be able to get in with this smaller.
When you get it, can you give the board a tour of it?
Sure. Yeah.
I'd like to see it.
In fact,
It's gonna be brand new.
yeah, right.
What's the old one worth? What do you think? Your guesstimation.
I don't remember what we got on the last one, but in here we don't add in the
It's much bigger than
the sell value of it, but we could probably sell it to a smaller agency and maybe get 50 to 100,000 for it, something like that. I mean, because you figure new, it's $500,000, and it still works. It's just we'd have to point out, you probably have to replace that pretty soon.
Well, they would know that if they were.
Yeah, we sell it as is through a public auction, but
Right.
yeah, we'll get some of that money back.
What's the tractor loader?
So James is here. James was talking about the easements. We have a lot of dirt easements that actually up until the recession, some of them we didn't even know exactly where they were at, and that was James retasked some of his staff to go out and mark all these easements that have been there for forever, but we didn't have marked out. So now that we do, we're doing a better job maintaining them. But the tractors that we have can't do what this tractor can do. They can't bevel the road so that the water runs off to the sides. So we're doing either renting a dozer or something along those lines, which is really expensive. So this is a tractor that's got a articulating cannon on the back, so that it can actually crown the road.
And just to,
Articulating gander.
Yes.
I'm gonna write that.
Yeah.
I have to remember that.
and just to
That's
give you
not escaping,
Fugitive voters?
fugitive
Yeah.
escaping
But
orders,
it's pretty
I
good.
remember
We've
Steve-
got
Yeah, it
those
is.
fugitive voters are no
Pretty
longer
good.
fugitive.
Yeah.
I was just at LS1 2 days ago.
So,
Good job.
just to give you an idea how important that is that Costco easement, the reason why we're in this boat is because the easement was never cleared and Habitat took over our easement. So even though it's our easement, Habitat took over, which means the bugs and bunnies got in there, which means it's $600,000 an acre to clear it. We have to clear it, do all the work, and then pay $600,000 to buy mitigation somewhere else.
So this piece of equipment
So-
keeps those dirt roads.
It's the environmental rules and costs associated with it. They used to be a small percentage of a capital job. Now they're becoming huge percentages of capital jobs.
So it's important to clear our easements.
Yes, and keep them.
A question on the easement behind the Costco,
Yeah.
curiosity. Our sewer line went in before?
Yes.
Well, the creek was
It was
there.
already there.
The creek was already there, but it was actually farmland. It was actually farmland back in the day. It was farmed, and then I don't know what happened to the farm, but it stopped, and then they made it into a wetland mitigation bank. There used to be those pampas grass and palm trees all through that creek,
Okay.
and those use a lot of water, so it's dry. So when they made it a mitigation bank, they removed all the invasive species, which used all the water. So then the whole area became a wetland.
Yeah.
So, and then when it became a wetland, and this is in the 80s, basically everything overgrew it, including overgrew our easement
Right.
at that point. And there's really, we need to blame the city of Carlsbad, and maybe people who used to be at the city of
Sure,
Carlsbad.
yeah.
It's a city of Carlsbad project that did it.
Well, we're only paying
How many
20%, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, Buena's playing the majority of it. So,
But anyways, that's what that tractor's for, is to maintain our easements as they should be, so we don't spend $600,000.
So this tractor loader is just an accessory part that goes on something?
No, it's a full tractor.
It's a
So
full
it has a
tractor.
loader, so we can still use it if we are not using it on easements. We'll have it in here in the yard for loading materials.
Okay.
So we use one of the backhoes right now for that. So it'll most of the time when it's not out clearing the easements, it'll be used to load materials. So it's a dual purpose. But one of the main things on it is that articulating cannon on the back.
So Ed, will this be a permanent increase in one on our fleet?
Yes.
You're not gonna not replace another piece down the road when it's due?
Yeah, I don't think.
We'll see how this one works.
Yeah, I don't think we may wind up with one less backhoe. There's one that we typically keep in the yard, but unfortunately, those take a beating, and a lot of times we have one down for repairs. We'll see how it works.
Glenn will be busy because engineering now surveys the easements annually.
Right.
The different ones, we just go down the line and find them, and then they get triaged and put in the work order for Ed's crews to go out and clear.
Yeah.
So, and then of course work environmental to clear at the right time. So,
And just out of curiosity, what's the Ford Super Duty you use, the F-350? 4x4?
The one right above,
One,
right
yeah,
above the
190,
tractor loader.
replacing 197.
Yeah, the one just above your new truck.
I don't see a GM vehicle in there.
That is for the mechanical electrical department. So it's replacing one of their vehicles that they have. So you see the larger utility trucks that have the hoist on them and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that's for pumps and motors going into the pump stations. They go down Metal Arc. They perform a lot of maintenance down there. Twin Oaks Reservoir, there's a lot of maintenance up there that they have to do. So it carries all their tools, and they're able to pull pumps and motors. You saw the video of lift station number 1 where they
Yeah.
replaced that motor, so that truck would be involved in that.
Oh, okay. So there again, there's an old truck that's gonna be
It's just,
farmed out.
yep.
yeah, if you see like 190, that's a 2005, 2004 era.
Yeah,
Truck.
it just, they get to so many miles and things start breaking down, and every year, the mechanics go through, they triage everything throughout the year, and they have an Excel file. In fact, I sent it to Glenn every year, so he looks at it too, and it has recommendations. Yeah, this one can go another 5 years. This vehicle we should have replaced last year, and it's critical. The engine's failing. We're going to spend $7,000 on a new engine when it's $27,000 to get a replacement vehicle. We're throwing good money after bad. So they fill all this out, and then we triage it and go, okay, yes, we can afford to replace this.
In
push
your
this
mind, I
back.
know the board looked at it a few years ago, but in your mind, the new vehicles we're getting, although they'd be more expensive, do you see a benefit to using alternative fuel now that we have a source so close to us on Las Postas?
We've talked about that. Glenn and I've talked about that. Some of the issues is that those would not be able to be serviced by our own staff because the equipment's different. So we go out and we spend $50,000 on a piece of diagnostic equipment for a vehicle that costs us $40,000. It is something we're looking at. There are certainly our pool vehicles, like I'm sure Glenn would like 161 maybe to get replaced in the future. He's got an older Explorer that maybe we do start replacing the pool vehicles where people are going to the trainings and seminars, which they do a lot of. We have our public relations van, so there are some that are maybe not super high miles yet, but they're just not working for pool vehicles as well as they should. So
Is it even a possibility to outsource the mechanical to, let's say, Edco, who the whole fleet's changing over, so they have the mechanics and they have the.
for a few vehicles like that, we may
For the
definitely.
large, is that,
Yeah.
you'd outsource the
Yep.
mechanics.
Yeah, the fleet that we have now, we've looked at that before, like City of San Marcos, what they did, where they're leasing everything, and it didn't work for us because our fleet, for the most part, is still relatively new, so we're gonna throw away all these new vehicles that
Oh,
we've
yeah,
invested
no,
in,
no.
and so the mechanics that we have right now do a great job maintaining our fleet.
Right.
Even some of the newer vehicles, they've been able to maybe buy a small tool, a diagnostic tool here and
But
there.
unless we start doing it at some point in time,
Yeah,
it's never gonna happen, and gas is gonna hit $5 a gallon this year.
yeah.
I mean,
I hope
And my truck gets 8 miles to the gallon. Good thing I only live 4 miles from work.
Gas tax hasn't even kicked in yet.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
No,
not-
that is a
you're not
conversation
covered
Glenn and I have had,
Is there
so
one more phase?
we will probably start that with the pool vehicles, like I said. James has one, Safety has one, Glenn has one. The one that I have is pretty new, so that won't be
The
replaced.
pool vehicles?
Yeah, so they're the multi-person vehicles, Explorers.
Right. And then we have 4 that go out with department head or whoever gets them. There's
Right.
four vehicles always out besides yours.
Well, there's the
Guys
du-
are on
the
call.
duty.
Oh, the duty.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Not all departments have just a dedicated, like water operations. We quit buying just a dedicated one because they've got so much water quality equipment already in their vehicle. So those operators actually just take their normal daily vehicle home when they're on call. So we're kind of getting away from.
Well, I'm just asking, 'cause I know we've asked this question before over the years, and my question is, unless we start doing it, it's never gonna happen.
We did
We're
buy
gonna- next time,
we
next
did
time.
buy an Explorer for Metal Arc for their duty vehicles, so that they had something. So if they're coming up for training, it used to be they bring a district vehicle and then a few of them take their personal vehicles. So and the Explorers get great gas mileage, but that's before Glenn came over.
What happened to that?
No, it's still used.
Still used.
Oh, it's
And it uses,
but it's a gas. It's gasoline
Traditionally
only.
fueled,
Yeah.
well, I'm trying to get to the point where we need to change fuel.
Yeah.
Let's do it now.
Yeah, I mean, for our normal pool vehicles, going electric may make sense in some type of hybrid.
Yeah, none of these are pool vehicles like the 6.2 liter 4x4. We definitely can't do it with that. They're bigger. They're all bigger vehicles. The only one I think 210 F-150. That's something maybe we could look at. I don't know how much more those cost. I know that the quote we got.
And even the pool vehicles need to be able to go off-road and do some stuff. I mean, they don't need to maybe be like heavy-duty 4x4s, but I know when you took
Yeah,
the
just-
board out,
just
we
the
were
engineering.
on some roads
Yeah.
that you wouldn't want a Prius.
Oh, yeah.
No. I wouldn't want one anyways.
No, yeah, but I mean, but it's
Another reason.
It's more than just employees coming from Metal Arc to here.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Lucille goes all.
And no matter what, we'll need a 4x4 pool vehicle for going to construction sites, so.
Well, I don't like comparing this, but I know that Orange County, for instance, has gone all, with all their vehicles, they've already done it. So I'm sure they invested in having all the mechanics as well, so there's more to it than that for us, because we have 2 or 3 vehicles come out, we don't wanna hire mechanics and buy $1 million worth of equipment.
It is something that we've been discussing as we get closer to.
It's a pretty extensive
aging out.
effort, because what we've done is we've discussed on a one-off basis, if the vehicle's due for replacement that year, we say, are there alternatively fueled vehicles that can fill that role? As opposed to taking a holistic look and looking at every piece of equipment you have and identify which type of alternative fuels. Do you want some electric, some natural gas, some liquid propane, some hybrid? And then figure out that strategy and what pieces of equipment do you need for fueling, servicing. It's a big effort if you really wanted to do a fleet conversion.
We need an
We
asset
don't-
manager. That's what
Fleet
we need an
conversion
asset
manager.
manager.
Fleet manager, yeah.
Manager.
And then we don't get the tax credits though, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't pay taxes, so.
But yeah, it is something we've discussed more than once.
Well, and James touched on something, the board would have to figure out what's the motivating factors to try to save costs by having cheaper vehicles, or is it because you want to be more green? Because these conversions are very expensive, and they don't always save you operating money, but you may be polluting less. Is that important?
More green costs us all $1 a gallon more for gasoline today than the rest of the country, so I think it's really to save money. And natural gas is cheaper.
So the F-150, that one is actually part of the mechanical electrical department as well, and it's replacing one of the ones that would have been, let's see, about 20,000 more. It's replacing one of the bigger trucks because the senior electrical technician position that we converted into the SCADA technician position, he's not doing any of that work that required the bigger truck, so he just needs an F-150. So we still need something that can get him places that are. We have some four-wheel drive vehicles he can grab if we needs to get up to Coogan Tank or one of those places. And so we decided not to go four-wheel drive, which adds more expense, because 95% of the time he won't need the four-wheel drive. So that's what that's replacing. We decided we don't need to get another one of these big utility trucks. He doesn't need all those tools. He doesn't need a crane. So we're going with it, and it's a V6, so it's not even a real powerful
I saw
truck.
that.
We
Thank
do
you.
we do take that into
So,
consideration.
so you're budgeting 687 this year, you said it was 7 something last year. Well, I mean,
778.
do you happen to know off the top of your head, like the prior year before, I mean, like, are we spending roughly $700,000 a year on vehicles? Year in and year out?
It's not just vehicles though. You
No,
gotta
yeah,
look,
I
you
see.
got equipment down there
Yeah,
too.
but that's
so.
a small piece of it.
Yeah, it's 100,000, and that varies from year to year as well, depending on what's breaking down, what needs replacement. And then there's no easements in there this year, so.
Last year was the dump truck, wasn't it? The big.
Yeah.
200,000 for that
Yeah,
10
yeah.
Well, and my question, okay, so last year, we requested, you said how much?
770.
778.
How much did we get as a return from the trucks that were sold?
Salvage value?
Yeah, where do we get that number for, to show what the offset is?
I can get that number for you to see what it was.
Kinda curious.
We usually, I think we were actually auctioning off some of them previously. I'm not sure we did this fiscal year, but we either trade them in or auction them off, depending on which one gets us more money.
I thought they were always auctioned.
Not always. It depends which one's higher.
Okay, well, I think that would be an interesting number to see, to know last year we requested that we spent that much, but how much do we really spend? What did we really,
The
Maybe
net,
Right.
what was our net?
$200,000
Yeah.
less,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
$200,000.
Yeah.
It'd be good to know.
so the year before was 818.
Wow. But we don't know what any offset might have been from selling.
No, but we can find out the offsets from the vehicle
I
dispositions.
think in the future would be a good number for us to see, but that's, you know.
Wes, do you have a general idea of the value of the fleet? The
Um,
numbers sound big, but when you look at what is the total value of the fleet?
I do in the system, not,
I'm not asking right now, but maybe when we come back, we can give an idea of what the value.
yeah, I
Michael
actually
probably
recently
has a
did
spreadsheet.
I recently did a walkthrough and saw all the vehicles and equipment with Dennis Bowman. We went through what we have in the fixed asset system, checked to make sure everything was here, that they were numbered, labeled, everything was pretty much accurate, so I
The
have
Jeep
that.
still here, or that gets stolen yet?
Is it still there?
It's still here. Stolen.
I think when Ed leaves, it'll leave, it'll disappear.
So we hope it never leaves then.
True,
Yeah.
true.
Well said.
Okay, so, we will look at getting the offset cost for that, the disposition values, and then, the total value of the vehicles and equipment. I can look into those two things. Andy, write that down. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay.
Can
So-
we look back and see what we got for the last factor that we sold to?
Sure.
It's been a few years since we replaced one, but it might be 5 years ago.
I mean,
I'm just curious too, but I'm.
it'd be
I'm
good to
not
know,
sure.
like, if we're looking, last year was 770, if we ended up getting 2 or 250 back, then that takes away a little bit of the sting, right? So.
I think Dennis has it pretty much, he can get it relatively quickly, because usually,
Yeah, it would be good to know if, like, next year when you see, well, last year we did this, but we got a return of X.
yeah,
Mhm.
Kind of gives us an idea, it's not always gonna be the same, but
yeah,
bottom line.
it's a great idea. And we will get that for you.
So we can buy that 74 Pinto from General Motors. I'm gonna paint it white and put a
Classic.
sticker on it.
It's getting worse, we better end this meeting
We-
soon.
Okay, so moving forward, in April, for the rest of the month, we're going to take any information we get from this meeting and incorporate it into the budget. And now that we have the operating requests, we have the salaries and benefits estimates, and we have the CIP and vehicles and equipment, we can start putting that into our reserves for our long-range plan. So the next steps for us, Mike and I are actually going to the Water Authority tomorrow, hopefully get an idea what our water purchases will be for the upcoming year. We can look at that. And our cat fee study will give us an idea of what we expect or hope to collect from cat fees in the upcoming years as well. Using those and estimating our water sales for the next meeting, we will put together the draft budget. So in the next meeting, we hope to have the draft budget ready, and that if your schedule permits, depending on the board, we're looking at April 29th right now. And that will be a preliminary review of the water purchases and sales, a review of the draft budget, and we hope to have an update on the cost of service study RFP. We've actually started looking at the old RFP, transitioning it to be for the current year's scope and what we need for that. And if nothing else, it'll be like, this is the status of it, like we've got the new draft ready or whatever. We'll give you an update on where we stand with the RFP. And then we'll discuss any board request items in that meeting as well. And then in May, we're going to put together the first draft proposed budget. We'll revise and refine the existing draft and make that draft proposed. And then we will have a finance committee meeting on May 13th, and we can change these dates according to your schedule, whatever works for you. We hope to have two in May though, one on May 13th and one on May 29th. So the May 13th will be the reviewing the draft proposed and making any changes. And then hopefully we'll have a full board workshop around May 29th to go over the review of the proposed budget with the full board. And then in June, we hope to have the budget brought to the board meeting on June 5th, and hopefully we will approve the recommended budget on the 5th of June.
What were the 3 dates in May?
It was May
13th?
13th and 29th, so 2 in May.
Okay, 2.
And that May 13th is probably the last finance committee meeting related to the budget.
Correct. Unless we feel we need another one, and then we'll schedule it. But that's the plan going forward, and that will hopefully conclude the budget process on June 5th, prior to the rate setting.
Okay, so that's our first 2 items on the agenda?
Yeah.
Right?
We're done with 1,
Good job.
we're done with 2,
Yeah.
and then we'll move on to proposed capital facility fees. I have one speaker on this matter, Mr. Hunsaker.
No, probably after your presentation.
Sure. Is that?
James, did you have
Actually,
a
you-
presentation up there? Or?
Yeah, we're gonna, it's just some slides. They represent the same as the handouts. So I'll go over them, and Mike and I will kind of work together on it.
The slides are the same as the handouts?
It should be.
Yes.
Jim, you need me to go? No. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not gonna say anything, guys.
So James, I don't know if you're going to cover it, but we
What happened to this?
My wife said time to clean up.
He's got a
Happy birthday.
clean year and I've learned this now, a clean year, clean shaven year, and a different facial do
I
year.
call it a dirty year.
Dirty year.
This is a clean year.
Oh, thank you.
Razor's cheaper than an attorney.
So we brought this item to the finance committee.
Leaving
before?
aside?
He's leaving too.
Well, we should.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about it.
Okay, go ahead.
So as the committee may recall, I think at the last committee meeting, we brought this forward as a draft. Since then, we've met with the BIA. We've also done a little bit more work with Karen Keys, which is our consultant that's doing the cap fee study review. And we've also worked with finance, and they've reached out to our financial analysts to look at different rates and structures to make sure, what we're putting down makes sense. So based on all the recommendations, primarily recommendations by both our consultant and our financial advisor, I don't know the name of the firm.
It's Feldman Rolla. Laura
Okay.
Carpenter was the one that made it.
Oh, sorry. So it's okay.
So Robert Poor and Laura are the two that we talked most about.
Got it. We made some adjustments to it, and today we're going to kind of go over what we've shown the committee last time, and then go over the new items, which are also items that we showed the BIA and the committee. So the first slide here is just our water and sewer capital. As you may recall from the last committee meeting, the phasing is the phasing that Sandag puts out, which are every 5 years. So 2021 to 2025 is phase 2, 2026 to 2030, phase 3, so on and so forth. Phase 5 is that forever, that build out. Phase 5 is not put out by Sandag. Phase 5 is used by looking at what the city and the county says is the maximum development and filling in the holes. So in other words, if there's existing land that's occupied by homes, or let's say occupied by homes, but the city has rezoned it to have condos on it, there's no assumption that that's going to happen in phase 1, 2, 3, or 4. The assumption is probably going to happen in phase 5 because that's more costly, more expensive, and harder to do. Some of it may happen, but in general, as a rule. So from the water side, you could see both that and extending out, and from the board presentation of the master plan, as you may recall, the sand egg projections this time are right in line with what our actuals are we're seeing for population. So we basically, when we stopped and delayed the master plan, we extended the timelines to meet more realistic presentations, and now the master plan timelines and the capital projects associated seem to be right in line with the growth patterns that are coming from sand egg. So that's the good news. So you have $24 million in water capital. Phase 5 has a significant amount of water projects, but they're not part of the fee because they're so far out in term. Sewer, you have about the same amount of projects, and the timing changed a little bit, but not significantly. The main timing that changed for sewer, and we already talked about today, was the outfall. We were able to section out the outfall into different areas because each section of the outfall is different sizes or different slopes, and prioritize it and move things around. But in the outfall, in sewer, we do have a phase 5, which is wastewater treatment and portions of the land outfall. Those are the only 2 items in phase 5 for sewer that we included in the fee. Go to the next slide, please. So next slide here. So this is what we presented to the committee last time. What we're calling is the draft A. We have 2 interest rates that we use. So 6% short term, which is phase 1, 8% for phase 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Just as a point of reference, our existing cap fee that's adopted used 4% for phase 1. It was done in the middle of the recession, and 6% for phase 2, 3, 4, and 5. So basically, we up the percentage, 2% on each side, based on the current rates and markets. Looking at that, you can see. Oh my, that would be awesome. You can see here our current fee, water and sewer in total. Now, if we look at what the interest rates did from going from 4 and 6 to 6 and 8, it added $650 to the fee on water. It added $1,500 to fee in sewer. And then the other thing that changed between our existing cap fee and the new proposed cap fee is our deficit increase. Back in 2010, when we adopted the previous cap fee, we had like $100,000 in deficit in water and very little in sewer. I don't recall what the sewer number was. But now we have $9 million deficit in water and around $6 million deficit in sewer, totaling about $15 million in deficit.
Okay,
So
hold on right there.
Yeah.
I hate the word deficit for a lot of reasons. I give credibility to our detractors to start with. It's not a deficit. We re-looked at all the numbers, and now we're coming up with these numbers. There's no deficit. That's part of the number that we need to charge in the future.
But it is a deficit.
it's okay. It's
Where's the deficit from?
It's money borrowed from ratepayers, essentially, but we're paying ratepayers back at an interest rate, so the ratepayers aren't harmed at all.
How's it money borrowed by ratepayers?
Because, excuse me, because we're spending it before we collect it. We're actually not even collecting enough to cover our expenditures. If you look back over since 2007 or so, we haven't collected enough to cover the expenditures in the capacity fund in either water or sewer. So the rate's just not high enough.
So we make up that shortfall by borrowing money from the reserves, from the replacement reserves, and charging interest, so it's not,
We've
not a gift.
we've been spending the money, we tagged it wrong, and now we're tagging it right, we're correcting it. Now we're bringing the fee back up to bring it to where it should be.
Right.
There's no deficit.
Part of the increase in the current fee is going to be to recover the historical deficit where there was a shortfall in collections.
So, but I understand what you're saying. It's a nomenclature thing. It's basically there's money that was used. We didn't have the money in hand. We didn't have a reserve or a surplus in capacity fees, so we went into reserves. And then
But that's what reserves are for.
Well, and part of the capacity fee too is in its nature, it's gonna have a deficit because you spend the money and then you collect it from the developers later.
Deficit's
So-
a bad word.
Okay, so it's gonna be
Find another
negative.
word.
It's gonna be negative.
So basically, it's a debt.
Yeah.
It's a debt, but instead of going out to a bank or getting some type of bond,
Borrowing from ourselves.
it's a debt that would. It's not a deficit. It's a debt we're borrowing from the ratepayers and paying them back with interest. So the
We're
rate
buying it from what we already have put set aside.
Further, remember,
For
you gotta
replacement.
separate your replacement and your capacity.
Right.
So we're borrowing it from the replacement to fund the shortfall in the capacity with the intention that we're gonna pay it back
Yeah.
via this.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but just deficit's the wrong word to use, because it's not.
yeah. So use
We're
words
now
that-
looking at it with new eyes going,
Yeah.
hey, we need to charge this much.
No, I completely understand what you're saying. The word deficit has different connotations.
And very difficult to explain to the general public.
So, but what it
When
is,
they say it's very easy, deficit.
Yeah.
Everyone conjures up what a deficit is.
so what it is basically it's debt, but
Internal
it's internal debt to our ratepayers. The good news is the ratepayers aren't harmed because the ratepayers are getting the full interest back.
I understand, but we need to change that terminology somehow to say that. We can't use the word deficit, because it's not.
And it's not my terminology. I don't know if it's
I know,
in the
I'm telling you-
finance
I'm
system.
telling to the finance guys, change that terminology. It's not a
Like
deficit.
capital facility revenue shortfall.
There we
Something.
go.
There you go,
So,
that's easy.
But here's the good news. So the way it was handled before was it was basically the interest rate of what was being charged. You know, in other words, if Lathe and our what do you when you pull all the average rate of
All
what's it
our
called?
investment returns, basically.
Yeah, our
So-
investment returns. Let's say it was 2% for argument's sake.
Yeah.
Then the capital facility fees, the cap fees would pay back the ratepayers at 2% before. The principal wasn't getting paid down. With the new way we're doing it, we're paying the principal down in 20 years. So this way, at the end of 20 years, there is no money being borrowed from the ratepayers for capital facility fees. The way it was from the previous cap fee, it was almost like interest only. So that's a difference.
When were the current fees established?
2010, 11.
So
But
be-
they had escalators in them.
before anybody on this current board.
No, this
Was
current board was
Were you
on.
here in
No,
2010?
it was right afterwards. Yeah.
No, it was right before.
Sorry,
Nobody on the current board was here when these
the
fees were established.
current board was right after.
Jim
And-
came in at the end of
Yeah.
10,
And-
after this was already done.
Yeah.
And our chief financial officer at that time was somebody different,
Mhm.
right? I don't know if that's your official title, but.
Taglioni.
Yep. So I suspect that current administration back then put this in place and got it approved by the board.
Yes.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't seem to remember hearing about what, regardless what you call it, shortfall, deficit, whatever. This is in maybe recent months is the first time that I've even heard this, and it's 2019. This has been in place since 2010. How come it hasn't come up before?
Well, it was only $100,000 for the water, so it was almost nothing. Back when we adopted fees back in 2010, 11, and I don't recall what it was for sewer, but it was very small. We had almost no deficit before, because and the reason is we went out for debt service. So when you go out when you build a tank, when you build a pipe, you can't build half a tank, half a pipe. So you have to build the whole thing, and then as development comes in and pays their fees, they pay it. So when you go out and get a loan, you go out for debt, that funds it, then you don't have to borrow money internally for it. So the reason why we had almost none is because we just went out for debt financing for Metal Arc expansion and Cena Phase 5 expansion and our 40 million gallon tank. And I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then subsequent we had a few different refinancing, but we haven't gone out and gotten new debt. So through the recession, we slowed down building, but we still had those debts out there. And then when we started building again, to make up for some projects that were already in the pipeline, so to speak, going, the industry as far as new homes being built, that's on the tail end. It came later. Also, what also happened at the time was city, there's different developers that said they were gonna build 2,000 units. Matt one even sued the district on it. And one of the things that they said was, listen to us, we're the experts. We're gonna be building this in. You need to put this into your financial models. A lot of that building never happened. They never met even half, even a tenth. Maybe they met a tenth, but they never met even half of their building. So when you put that into the financial models, you have an assumption in the model that a certain amount of growth is going to come in, and you're collecting cap fees. So then you can kind of project, we're going to spend this much, or spend this much, and basically go into debt, but then we're going to start collecting. So, well, since that never happened, we spent, and then we said we're not collecting, we stopped spending. But we were already down here when we stopped spending. So a lot of those developers, I mean, if you look at what's been developed here, it's gone a lot slower than they initially projected, and they initially came to the board and complained about, and those complaints were heard, and the fee was adjusted, the model was adjusted for those complaints.
Right.
In 2010, the board approved the fees.
Mm-hmm.
In between then and now, the board approved an ordinance that was for high-density impact fees, which the new board, when it came in,
Yep.
thought that was wrong and threw it out.
Yep.
Now this is the first time this board is seeing capacity fees. That isn't what the board saw in between time. And before, they saw an attempt to hamstring developers. And that's why they said, no, it's not done the way you're doing it now. What you're doing now is a capacity fee across the board, apartment, homes, everything, commercial, you name it. You're doing it the right way. The one in between wasn't done the right way, so although you're trying to say that there's a deficit now because of that.
No, I'm not.
And there's not.
I'm not saying there's a deficit.
Then where do you get deficit from? I gotta keep going back to
Deficit, or it has nothing to do with the impact fee, the density impact fee.
The deficit is simply because we've spent more money on capacity increasing projects than we've received in revenue.
So
Okay.
even if the density impact fee was in place, the biggest deficit increases in the water side, it would not have affected water at all.
Okay.
Okay? So that's a completely separate subject, and this cap fee has nothing to do with the density effect. It's just a regular.
But
cap
this
fee.
is the first cap fee this board has seen as a capacity fee across the board.
That's true.
That other thing that was in between was nothing.
That was a density impact fee which was rescinded.
And that has nothing to do with the deficit that
There's-
you're now calling a deficit.
Yeah, and there's no indication of that. The only reason that sewer treatment's in there is because sewer treatment's now in the master plan. And we want to show you, to make this apples to apples, there was no sewer treatment in this master plan, so there's no cost for it. Sewer treatment now is in the master plan, and that's what adds to it. So this way you can see apples to apples when you compare fees across the board of what you're getting, the actual delta.
So
Now,
the prior board, the prior administration, and the financial leadership at that time put us in this position, and the current board's gonna fix it. It's not the first time we fixed something. We'll fix this one.
so with that, going past it, we can rename this. I like Wes's name. I don't remember what it is now.
It was actually Glenn's.
Oh,
It
Glenn's,
was a
yeah.
revenue shortfall, right? Capacity fee,
Yeah.
revenue shortfall.
So and then sewer
CFRS.
treatment again, kind of since we had a good segue into that. Now the new master plan shows that we have a shortfall in the outer years for sewage treatment. We're actually getting close, probably in the next 5 to 7 years, butting up to our 75 percentile of where we have to start planning and designing at EWA. So
And let me ask you a question. Now that we're seeing we have a budget shortfall, I know that in the last capacity fee, the one was done in 2010, there was at least 1 year, maybe 2 years, where they didn't increase anything.
capacity fees have increased per E&R. That's the only increase that we do on capacity fees. We don't bring them back to the board. So the board has not had even a chance to look at a cap fee since the original adoption of it, because we don't bring that back to you because
It's just automatic.
Automatic E&R.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that the board has actually not seen it. The committee's only seen it. The committee's seen it twice. So these two members of the committee have seen it twice. The board has not seen it, and we'll talk about that.
Okay, I guess that's what I said. There were at least 2 years that there were no raises coming from sewer to our customers.
Oh, yeah.
Those are sewer rates.
Sewer rates.
Yeah, not
For the
the-
sewer rates, although in reality, looking at it now, they should have been.
But
No,
those are different.
So this is capacity fee, so this is growth only, rates are replacement. Two different enterprise funds, completely separate,
Okay.
unless we borrow. That's why this is here. So this has nothing to do, and I don't want a rumor starting, this has anything to do with a density impact.
It'll start.
Yeah, this has everything to do
And I can
with,
guarantee you.
there's no sewer treatment in this previous master plan, and now in the new master plan, there's sewer treatment. And then the last is EWA capital. So, and let me explain that a little bit too, because this is something I had to explain to the BIA. EWA Phase 5 improvement was a big expansion, the last large expansion in EWA. And in it, they had 2 heat dryers, that's the main component, so 2 heat dryers. But if they built 2 heat dryers, they didn't have the flow to use it, so you would have a $40 million plus piece of equipment there that would be unused for over a decade, which means it would just rot. So they didn't build it. Now they're in their plan, they're planning on building it. It's the largest single capital item that's in the plan. It's part of the expansion. So it's a expansion cost that we haven't realized as 24% member of EWA. So our 24% adds about $925 to the bill also, because it is a growth component. So with that, if you look at the relative fee, which means if you make it apples to apples with the new master plan, our fee is $9,400 and then $17,000 adjusted. Our proposed fee is $8,900, basically $9,000 and $18,500. So our apples to apples comparison, our fee would go down 5%, but our sewer fee goes up, mainly because now the sewer treatment component of it, with a total of 3.7% increase. Obviously, that's not the way the developers look at it. Developers look at it as we pay $17,000 for a house now, and now it's going to $27,000 for a house, so they see a 55% increase basically.
I could see how they could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is what we showed the BIA. So we've been fully transparent with them. This is what we showed. So we also said, after talking to our financial advisors and also our consultant, they actually recommended some different interest rates that may be more appropriate. We were conservative. So this, it looks exactly the same, but so you gotta look at here. This is draft B. We're reducing the short-term rate from 6% to 5%, and we're reducing the long-term rate from 8% to 6.5%. This is a range that was recommended both by our financial advisor and also by our consultant as a range that they would be comfortable with. It's not as conservative, and I want to call this the staff recommended rate that we're going to show you today. We're going to show you 3 rates total. And what that does now is, and you got to kind of flip back and forth, and if you don't mind flipping back and forth, if you look.
Up and down.
Yeah.
Between A and D.
Yeah, so if you look here, this is $651 increase, and now it goes to $98. This one here is $1541 increase, and now it goes to -$6 basically. Okay, obviously this is the same, this is the same, this is the same.
Yeah.
So it's just playing with
Just
interest rates.
yeah.
It basically reduces this fee from $27.5 total to $25.4, so about $2,000 is an increase. It reduces the fee. And then obviously it reduces this to about a 4% increase, but really what we're looking at is now you go from 55%. It's basically, instead of a $9,800 increase in fee for them, it's $7,700 increase in fee for them. Still a substantial increase. This is where staff is comfortable with. When we asked the consultants, what's the bottom line, they gave us,
Bottom line, meaning what's the lowest you can go on assumptions?
they said 4.5 short term. Now they said 4.5 short term. Padre Dam got 4.5 on a muni bond. My understanding, talking to Wes, we can't get that. We could probably get 5% realistically. 4.5% loans are out there, but we probably wouldn't qualify. We'd be very lucky to get it. But 4.5% loans are out there. Our current loan, our biggest loan, what's it at?
5%, and the revenue refunding bonds are 5%.
Yeah, so this is why this is not the staff recommended. And then long-term 6%. And what that does now is it reduces these fees. This was basically, just go $6, now it's -565, from positive 98 to negative 98, and what that does is it lowers the fee basically another $1,000, right? Essentially, yeah, $1,000. It makes this a 39% increase. So today, what we're showing you basically is 3 options. With the middle one, B being the staff recommended option. We already know that we can't get that 4%. 4.5%, most likely. It'd be very hard for us to even qualify for that, and our current loans are at 5%. However, the 6%, sorry, whoops, going right, and the 6.5 for the long term is pretty comfortable. You know, when we talk to our consultant, they see inflationary forces in the future, and keeping stuff at 5 doesn't seem realistic. Think about it as a home loan long term. Getting 5% loan for a 30-year mortgage. You know, maybe you could do it now, or I don't even know if you can do it right now. I probably can't do it now, but getting it in 10 years, do you think you can do it? That's kind of the question that's the way they put it to us.
So, before we get too far on this, is there a reason we don't have to wait 9? I mean, it's been 9 years since the full board has looked at. I mean, can we put a policy in place, or have some maybe where the board looks at this at least every 3 years?
You need a master plan.
Well, whatever.
That's the Nexus study. So it takes 2 to 3 years to do a master plan. I mean, you can look at it just from an interest rate standpoint.
Right. That's what I was going to suggest.
Absolutely, and we talked to that about the BIA, saying we can set some rates based on realistic, and then look at it based on interest rates. So if interest rates go up a lot, our assumptions are wrong, or interest rates stay down, our assumptions are open up. But every time you open it up, it's another 60 days. It's another opportunity for challenge. However, I told the BIA that if they're a partner in this with that, then and there's less risk for the district, because if you ask district staff, hey, you know, if the BIA says we don't want any risk, you guys take all the risk, we're going back to 6 and 8%. But if we're going to partner in this to more realistic rates, then let's partner in it. It was kind of the question. I haven't got a response on that, but that's kind of the message that we sent out there.
I just think that this whole process, and you mentioned earlier, James, that with some of the housing numbers and the forecasting, that you know they were forecasting that they were going to build 2,000 homes, but then they ended up for whatever reason only building
300.
Yeah, 300 homes. Well, we need to have more flexibility in this modeling and being able to get back together and make sure that we're level setting it and getting it as accurate as possible more frequently than every decade.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if that, I don't know all the legalities as far as challenges that it opens you up for and whatnot, but I mean, it just seems like it's a bad way to do, government.
Well, if I may add in that the master plan is due to be done every 5 years. It was done in 2010. It was again due to be 2015.
Mm-hmm.
But we had some turmoil at the top end of the ship, and therefore it got put off. We had interim, it got put off. And then we have a new GM who got all the stuff together, which took a lot to get it together for 2019. But it was really a big change in management that created this not happening when it should have happened in 2015. Anybody correct me if you want to.
No, I think all the work was these guys. It wasn't me, but I think what Director Sinella is saying is true. And we can do like annual or every 2-year check-ins just to see if any of our basic assumptions change. If they're generally in line, we probably don't need to revisit it. But if we hit a period of rapid inflation, interest rates go through the roof, we're going to want to do this even if we don't redo the master plan.
Yep.
The foundational document may be the same, but the assumptions just in that one line are going to change drastically.
And you can see the interest rates drive because of the amount of outlying capital. Now, the difference between this master plan and the proposed master plan, I'll call it, and the adopted master plan, which is the old master plan, is the old master plan had all this growth up front. We were supposed to have 115,000 people in our service area. We're at like 108 or 106. So obviously, it didn't realize it. So what staff actually did during the recession is we stopped building stuff because we didn't need to. Or else, if we kept on building stuff, our debt, or whatever you want to call the deficit, would be 4 or 5 times greater. So we did make adjustments, but not in an official bring it to board capacity way. There's no houses going in, so there's no reason to build that pipe. It was just common sense. So, but that being said, those type of adjustments will continue through staff, through the future asset management supervisor. So
Plus less houses to pay part of those fees.
Yeah.
Which means the fees for everybody else goes up
Yep,
because
exactly.
you don't have those houses being built.
and you
But
know.
you should have less impact too. You should have less impact.
Right,
Less
Yeah.
there's not as
capacity.
much demand on
Yeah,
the system.
exactly. And what's happened, especially on the water side, because what we've seen is water conservation has taken effect. We've seen some rebound, but it hasn't gone back to pre-2006 era type of water use. So
And technology too.
yeah, and so the water capital this side is significant. $25 million over the next 20 years is not
It's
much
small.
on water for growth. And that's not a lot. Now we have a lot of big tank projects, but they're in way out because we don't need it because the demand's not there. Sewer though, people aren't flushing less. There's less water in the sewer, but we don't care about that because there's still the same amount of stuff in the sewer. That's what you care about. So the amount of water in the sewer actually makes it harder to treat the sewer. It doesn't make it easier. It actually makes it harder and more expensive to treat the sewer. So sewer, that's why the sewer schedule hasn't changed much. So if you look at the old master plan and the new proposed master plan, water drastically different, sewer not much, and that's the reason why.
So the plan on this, do you have a closing slide on this?
We got a couple more, but I wanted to make sure that it was clear that there's 3 options, with the middle option being the staff recommended. And then this is just a list of the projects that are in the water and sewer, and it's got the phasing like we showed. If you look at water, look at all these phase 5 projects. So look, you actually have $112 million in sewer, but we only have 25 of it captured in phase 1 through 4 because you have all these phase 5 projects that are way out.
And this is right out of the master plan.
This is right. Well, is this the master plan schedule?
This is
Yes.
program.
Okay, this is master plan then. And then this is the same with the sewer. And if you compare this table with the existing, which is online, the phasing changes a little, the cost change a little, but it's basically identical. So, and then let's see. Cap fee comparison. This is something that Director Martin asked for at the last Finance Committee meeting. So Mike was able to pull this together. We got most of this information from the BIA. Mike, you want to go over what you did after that?
Sure.
What from the BIA?
The BIA gave us information on the study that they did that had the water and sewer capacities of neighboring agencies. And then what I did is I took the list. There was probably 20 to 30 on that list. And as I went to each of their websites and see if I could get updated information, because some of the data was 18 months old. And also I wanted to verify it for myself because I didn't necessarily want to just trust their numbers. So most of the numbers are BIA numbers with updates if the website or the agency had that update on it.
So, and the other thing I want to clarify is when the BIA looked at it, and I'm familiar with many of these agencies, just working as a district engineer and interfacing with them, the way they apply the fee compared to what they listed is apples and oranges. I'll give you one example, and Rainbow's actually, I think, in the middle of changing this. Rainbow's fee says $10,000 per EDU. An EDU counts as 2.2 bathrooms. So if you build a house that's more than 2.2 bathrooms, then you pay the prorated amount of that. So the average 3,000 square foot house, which is the newer houses that are being out there, that have 4.5 bathrooms, are paying closer to $20,000 in EDU. Okay, so it's a trick. It's to make it look like it's a fee.
Okay.
So I just know that's how Rainbow is. Ramona does something similar too. A lot of the other agencies I don't know, and when I call them and ask them, they kind of say, yeah, each house we have to analyze. When they tell me each house they have to analyze different, it's different.
Yeah.
But most of them are straightforward like ours. A single family unit is a single family, whether you have 2 bathrooms, 3 bathrooms, 4 bathrooms, so on and so forth. So these fees are a little misleading, but we went ahead and put in most of the other agency fees here. You can see our existing fee and our proposed fee and kind of the order of where it sits.
Well, can I ask a question? How come we don't have, for instance, Helix 17.4? We don't have anything on their sewer capacity. They don't do
They don't
sewer?
do
It's not a
sewer.
wastewater
Yeah.
agency.
Who does it?
The city of La Mesa, I believe.
Can we get numbers from them?
Sure. We were just going off the BIA list. So
Okay.
do they have a city of La Mesa?
I don't know. I think I had it at one time.
So
Part of it is I didn't know which matched up like you
Yeah.
do. I didn't know Helix was La Mesa. So.
yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's
But
not
I
always a
can-
one-to-one.
But
There may be
yeah.
2 wastewater agencies that service different portions of a water district.
Yeah.
so-
And then on the sewer side, we're about here. So we're a little past the middle, and then we're going high. And this is based on the staff recommended option, by the way. So option B. And then if you look at the combined, 17,000 and then going to 25.
So if we go with staff's recommendation, we'll have the second highest combined
Of these agencies, it's not all
capacity,
agencies.
you know, but
Yeah.
that's pretty good cross section of
Like-
our region.
Yeah, but I think like City of Del Mar sewer fee is like $20,000, for example. I mean, don't quote me on that, but it's fairly high. So, but then again, they're City of Del Mar. So,
So we'll and to be clear, these are the fees that we charge developers.
these are fees that we charge.
And so we
developer.
would have the second highest of at least this sample,
Yep.
the second highest combined fees, developer fees in the
For
area.
the sample, yep.
So, explain to me Carlsbad and its difference from us.
Sure. So,
Other than monetary, what are we missing? What are they doing that we're not doing?
well, Glenn could probably speak a lot better than I do, but they have other fees. So most of the cities, if you look at most of the cities, they have other, was it PFC
PFFs.
PFF fees, and other in lieu fees, and other, basically they have a lot of other fee structures that they're collecting. Plus they get tax revenue from those developments, so they have, that's an offsetting cost for them. So, and those
Okay.
tax revenues are significant, especially with.
It's really hard to do an apples to apples comparison. If
Right.
Carlsbad did things the way we did, there's no way they're charging $6,900 combined.
Okay,
Who does
and that makes sense.
who does Vista Sewer?
Buena does part of it, Vista does part of it, so it's split. And I don't know if we have, I think we have Vistas, but not Buenas.
No, we have Buena. Buena is six grand.
$6 grand for Buena. So, and again, we gotta remember Buena's controlled by the city, so they have their PFS fees, they got their tax revenue, they got other things.
Who did you say the other one? Buena and
City
Vista.
of Vista.
Can you guys?
And oh yeah,
Easy.
one other thing too, is some of the cities like they have what they call a combined sewer rate for their cap fees. So they charge a portion of their cap fees to existing customers. That's the other thing they do. So the reason is they're fairly built out. So since they're fairly built out and the amount of capital they have to build for their facilities is not significant, so they don't have a lot of building to do. They have a lot of replacement, but they still have some building to do. So the water analogy that's always used for that is, you know, in the old days they used to put 6-inch lines, 4-inch lines in the streets, and obviously that no longer meets fire flow. So you're going to need an 8-inch line, which is a capacity increase, but also meets new standards. So existing ratepayers need to pay for that, not just developers, because there's no developers really coming in. So some of their rates have capital facilities in it, but if there's not a lot of growth, it's a very small portion of it. So a lot of it, when I worked as a consultant down in LA and Orange County, a lot of their rates, because they were built-out agencies, were what they called not combined method, hybrid method. So you have growth method, you have hybrid method, and if you have zero growth, I don't know what that's called, but those are two that I'm familiar with when it comes to cap fees. So we're doing a growth method which separates entirely into two enterprise funds. Capital facilities pays for growth only, so growth pays for growth. The developer pays its fair share. Existing ratepayers pay for replacement only, no growth. A hybrid method combines those as some percentage based on how much growth is left. What I've always been told by the consultants that are experts on this, once you reach about 20%, you start 20% growth left in your system, per the SANDAG documents, for the growth agency documents, then you start looking at a hybrid method. But if you have significant growth still, or specific areas of developer needs where they have to build their own projects, you separate those out.
Where are we at? We gotta
We're
be
at-
close to 20%.
We're at 45% almost on sewer. Oh yeah, 40% on sewer and 30 something
Where are
percent.
these homes gonna go?
It's you got to remember our sewer district boundaries. We don't have a map here, but if this is our water district, our sewer district boundaries are only right here now. We still have
All
a
that
single
north
portion.
area, yeah.
Right, but that north area is all county and farming, and
Yeah,
in my lifetime.
it's all
Yeah, I can
it's
see that.
a lot of it's on septic, and a lot of it that falls on this side of the canyon, the septics will fail. We've already seen that. We have people coming all the time, The board, anytime most of the annexations that the board approves are all people come into the sewer district. Onesie, twosies. It's just gonna take 30, 40, 50 years. But it's gonna happen.
Does Living Hand do waste?
They have a small specific area waste over by the Forest Ranch area.
Yeah.
And it's really, it was all built by one developer, there's no growth in it. So they have a small fee though.
So
Yeah.
is it Leucadia that does theirs?
Lucadia does a big
does most
portion
of
of
it,
theirs,
yeah.
yeah.
And I have a Leucadia. I have
Yeah, I
Leucadia.
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get some, for instance, Helix would be interesting to know what La Mesa charges, because Helix is the higher, we're third lowest on water cap. Congratulations, there's one place where outstanding,
Yeah.
where Helix is 17.4, the highest. There again, what's
I
La
don't know
Mesa
why they're
paying
so
for
high.
sewer?
I
Yeah.
haven't talked to Carlos about that.
Helix, they have a dam, don't they?
So, I don't know, they have some facilities, so.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, okay, you can't get apples to pears, but you can get a apple pear. You can get something relatively close, because that's what, you
But
know,
it's really hard with the cities, because the cities have those other fees and tax revenue offsets, so.
sure.
So you can put
The
it
cities,
down.
I get it.
Yeah, because that's what I mean. So if you have an agency as a water agency, it's a city usually that does the sewer. So,
So we should tell developers to build their own package plant, and we'll just do the water and really it's third cheapest.
yeah.
Yeah, they can
Yeah,
avoid
but
some
but
of
you
this.
know what? They looked at that, and almost every developer said, "No, thank you. You guys will pay your fee, and you guys do the sewer because
I
it's
know they
that
have
expensive."
problems in Escondido with that now, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the good news, bad news of the story is the good news is, as far as what the master plan shows, the way the fee structure is, and what we've got from our financial consultants. Sorry, there's a couple graphs. It's the same
Well, I'm
thing.
just saying that the
graphs.
green one in the middle, go back to it for a second, green one in the middle really has no basis in an argument with developers. Because Carlsbad, Leucadia, Escondido, so far, none of them have waste. Oceanside, 16.9, so they're pretty close to us. Where's Oceanside's water?
Oceanside's water.
Right below.
Right below.
Okay, so they're relatively, okay, they're pretty close. There's a good comparison. But the other ones aren't really, you can't compare them because they're apples to pears.
Yeah. Oh, then that's what's tough about cap fees. And you got to remember, some of them, the way they apply it is different. Not most of those agencies, I believe not, but I know Rainbow and Ramona, years past, the way they applied it was different. And I know OTI applies it pretty straightforward, although I didn't put the OTIs here. But I don't know about some of the other agencies. So.
Oceanside 16, Escondido, I mean, we're up there. Rainbow, again, you can't really count because, well, they have sewer cap of 69. They have that much sewer up there?
They have growth.
Where does their sewer go?
Their sewer goes. What's that treatment
I
plant?
don't know the name of the.
Yeah, they have a treatment plant that they work with Valley Center on, I believe.
And Valley Center gets it?
I don't know who owns it. So, but it goes down. They have I don't know if it ends up going to Oceanside San Luis Rey treatment plant or not. That's what I don't know. I don't know if they just pre-treat it and send it. Kind of, that's what Leucadia does.
It's gotta go somewhere.
Yeah, they only treat. Okay, Leucadia only does. They only do recycle. Yeah, wastewater.
Well, wastewater and recycling.
Yeah.
So what feedback did you get?
From.
From anybody, from the VIA?
Yeah,
from
so
residents?
they asked a bunch of questions. The main thing was on the interest rate. The main question they asked was, hey, can we continue to just borrow from the ratepayers, which we'll call not deficit,
Capital
shortfall.
facility
Shortfall.
revenue
Yeah,
shortfall.
Capital facility, just increase that. Talking with Wes, talking with Wes, that's not sustainable. Between what what Encina is going to be collecting from us on a yearly basis, if they truly collect that much from us on a yearly basis, and the fact that we have large sewer capital jobs going out, we would deplete even though our sewer reserves are probably the healthiest, we'd end up depleting it and we couldn't sustain. There's no way it would be prudent. I forgot what words, it wouldn't be prudent, or he used some like
Fiscally responsible.
accounting, fiscally responsible
Prudent's a good word.
yeah, you couldn't
President
plan for
uses
that.
it.
Yeah, you couldn't plan for that.
So
It wouldn't be the right thing to do.
We're able to do it now because it's a win-win for both. We have sufficient reserves, so we don't have to worry. It's not really costing the ratepayers anything. They're actually getting a benefit because they're getting the interest from the capacity fees. And our reserves are above our floor and below our ceiling, so they're in between. So we're able to do it now. but we need to maintain it above the floor and below the ceiling. It needs to be definitely maintained above the floor. In this case, if we were to get towards the floor, we can't keep doing this. We'd have to issue debt, and if you're going to issue debt, it's not fair to have the capacity fund kind of incur debt for the replacement fund.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, and then we talked about going out for additional debt, because we go out for, you know, basically if they don't like the term deficit, or, you know, we could get rid of it by going out for debt, but then debt's gonna be at 5%. So instead of paying our ratepayers back at 2 point something percent, the developers increased the fee, because the developers would be paying it at 5% essentially. So that was the main feedback. So the main questions they had, let me just kind of back up.
Can I ask you a big overall question?
Absolutely.
Had we done a master plan in 2015, had we done one in 2015, we would have had numbers showing that we're going upward, we're undercharging. We would have done that. But because we didn't do the master plan, it's multiplied till now, 2019, 4 years later.
Yes, because then we would have had the Nexus study, we would have adopted the fees in 2016, and I don't know how much of that deficit we incurred between 2016 and 19, but I'm sure a portion of it we did.
Right.
So we just stopped the bleeding, so to speak.
Okay.
So, although, let me back up, it's not really bleeding because nobody's being harmed,
Right.
and we're going to get paid back. So, because really,
Plus interest.
Yeah, plus
Of
interest.
our own money.
Yeah. So we're making money on our money, essentially.
Okay, well, I just,
Well, the ratepayers are.
The ratepayers are.
Yeah.
yeah, it just makes more
Wes said
sense.
it's a
that
win-win.
This should have happened earlier, it should have happened in 2015.
Yeah, so with that, you know, they're not happy about it, but we're meeting. It's not a adversarial meeting between Mike McSweeney and myself. I'm being transparent about it. I've shown them everything that we showed the committee today. We showed them our assumptions. We showed them what they had a list of questions from him, from some of the developers, from some of the developer engineers. We've answered all those questions, and now we've also told them we're coming today to this meeting. We also told them we're planning on coming with Karen Keys, our consultant, to present to the whole board basically the draft proposed capital facility fees, and Karen's going to have a letter report hopefully by then that we can hand out that shows the tie-in with the nexus between the master plan, the old cap fee study, and her report.
Is that May 1st?
Yeah, that's the plan on May 1st, and it's not to adopt the fees, it's just to present it for the first time to the whole board, state that we brought it to committee.
Just so I know, so I have all the information as I digest this and think about a path forward. Is there? So I look at those 5 phases, and you know, most of it, like you said, is in phase 5, which is 40, 50 years from now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, you're looking 40, 50 years down the road. Is there any flexibility to say that why do we have $55 million, you know, slated for something 40, 50 years from now? We don't even know what the situation is.
Yeah, so the BIA, or one of the representatives that came and that was almost asked the exact same question. So that $55 million is not just everything, it's just 2 projects. It's treatment and portions of the outfall. So we have portions of the outfall in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 5 essentially. I don't think we have any in phase 4 for sewer. So these projects will be ongoing. So the problem is we need treatment in 2035. We don't need treatment in 2055, 2075, 2200. And the way it works with the revised basic agreement with Encina is when you hit the 75 percentile, which we're not there yet, but we're not far off. We're at 68%. 68% already. Yeah. So we're at 68%, and solids is the main issue. That we have to start spending money doing the planning, and also it's a 10 to 15 year project to actually build something at Encina. You don't build it in 5 years. So if we need it by, let's say, 2040, we're going to have to start it in 2025, the planning, and we're going to have to get really serious about design before 2030, and we're going to have to be in construction probably in the early 2030s to get it done by 2040, or in the mid 2030s, to get done by 2040. The hope is, and I told this to the developers that came to the meeting, is we could purchase capacity from other people in incremental amounts. The cost is the same. The problem with that is if we purchase it early, then we're liable, and you may be familiar with the way EWA works, for all the O&M costs, because our percentage increases. That means our ratepayers are paying the O&M before the houses are there. If we build it, then it's all on the developer, and our ratepayers don't get hurt. So there's a real balancing act. So ideally, if we know development's coming in, and we're still paying the same cost, because the way it works is it's the cost, the way we came up with the cost is the cost of the phase 4 and phase 5 expansion. Which is what is in the basic cost of assets at Encina. So we're gonna have to pay that amount, and if we can buy it in $500,000 or 100,000 gallon increments, that's great. But there's a chance that an agency who has extra capacity, because there are a couple, say, okay, we'll sell it to you, but you have to buy $2 million. Then what do you do, right? Then we have a decision to make.
Good
So.
information. Anything else?
No, the last two slides were just charts that showed
Okay.
the same thing
Basically
graphically.
the same thing, just different.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day,
So-
if we adopt your proposal, we're gonna have the second highest developed fees in the area.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah. Our water fees are looking pretty good, our sewer fees are high. So, and that's with bringing that interest rate down from, and staff is working 5 and 6.5. And if possible, I'd like to get a feel from the committee if they're comfortable moving forward to the full board with this, still showing all three, those staff recommendation, which is the 5. So just to back it up here, it's 6 and 8%, 5 and 6.5, 4.5 and 6. And if there's any questions on that, Wes knows the interest rate stuff better than I do, so.
I need to digest this some. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a big number.
But I'm understanding from the last time this came up, that if you don't start charging now for it, you'll get to a point in 10 years where there's no affordability to build a house, period. Because you're gonna need to put in a $20 million project for 5 houses.
Yeah.
So it's just not gonna
So,
happen.
so what ends up happening is the costs go up and the amount of EDUs go down, and because that denominator goes down, it gets worse. And anything that we under collect, it's a net sum zero game for us.
Right.
So at the end of the day, if there's a delay in fee and there's some winners today, there's big losers tomorrow.
Right.
So from a staff standpoint, we want to collect the right fee at the right time.
It needs to be corrected. I mean, what was put in place in 2010 by the prior board and the prior administration seemed slow. I mean, and the fact that we haven't gone back and looked at it in 9 years, that explains why there's a significant jump. But I also, it's a big number. I also know that $25,000, yes, we say the developers are paying for it, but we also know that there's a housing affordability crisis in our region, and that just goes onto the cost of the house at the end of the day. Yeah, it's basically just a pass through.
Yeah.
So as elected leaders, we have to look at a lot of different things when we're making these types of decisions, and housing affordability is a piece of that as well. So I'm not saying that we're not gonna go here, but I'm not ready to give you an answer if I'm comfortable bringing it to the whole board right this second.
Yeah. So absolutely, so what staff can do is go to May 1st with our consultant and just present it as we presented the committee as, here are the 3 options, and just state that we presented this to committee for review, and the committee recommending bring it for the full board, and just leave it at that.
And then the committee can make whatever recommendations you want at the May
Yep.
1st meeting.
I would just like to say, I want to really thank you guys. I mean, it was last time that they did just the density capacity mess. That was the BIA's biggest thing, is they weren't part of included in the discussion. So you've included them in the discussion, let them know, here's the numbers as we see it. So
Yeah.
I think that's very big. And thank you very much for all of you doing that, because that takes away their argument. They're the biggest arguers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay, they're affected the most,
Yeah,
so.
and they're not happy about it, but
Well, no.
but they, like I said, it's not as adversarial as in the past.
And at least
Yeah.
they can't say we didn't include them in the process.
Right, they're included in the process, so, and it is, it is a housing, state of California, we're in a housing crisis.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't have housing for people, and bury your head in the sand, if we don't build it, they're still gonna come. You're just gonna have 3 or 4 families living in every house, which, as we know, in certain parts of the city, already happens.
Or living in RVs on every street.
Yeah, so I mean, housing is a major problem, and we need to do what we can do to help them build more housing, more affordable housing, not just the affordable housing, but more affordable housing, and keeping our rates as low as possible. Again, keeping in mind, we have to build stuff. So I think you present a very good case here as to where you're coming from. But I know that, we're all gonna be being contacted by everybody.
Yeah, and you know, if
But
that's.
I've already
that's-
heard from
okay.
2 of them that said, meeting with you guys, really, they understood what you were saying. Wasn't a question of the numbers, it was a question of how you move into
Options,
it.
yeah.
How you move into it.
Mhm.
That was the real question, rather than, they're not questioning the numbers.
Yeah,
They're not
'cause-
questioning the need for an outfall, and that question, which was a lot of questions before. They're not questioning that, they're just questioning, how can we ease into it?
And we gave them the full list of projects, we gave them everything, we showed them everything. Basically, we're transparent. We showed them everything that
Right.
we got, we answered their questions. And I did not expect anybody in that room to be happy about the
No,
fee.
no.
But, and what I said is, we're gonna present this to the committee, we may get a recommendation committee, we'll end up presenting this to the board. At the end of the day, the board will make a decision on it and we'll
Right.
implement it. Staff is presenting this from a neutral standpoint, not pro-developer, not anti-developer, as these are the needs in our adopted studies and this is what needs to be covered.
Yeah, and they're not gonna, I haven't spoken to anybody down there, but they're not gonna show all their cards. We do know, just last year, they sued the school district for the same exact issue, so
Mhm.
they might sit there and go, thanks for sharing me the information, but,
See it in
you know,
court.
our lawyer is gonna be the next one to
Yeah,
contact you.
That's what I'm saying, they're not
So-
happy about it, I'm not saying they're gonna agree with it by any means.
No, of course not.
So-
And so, we're gonna have to, and then, we'll have to fight that battle if we have to, but I got one speaker on this, matter, it's Mike Hunster.
Yeah. You do use the word deficit, you're gonna be sued by a couple of different people, period. I think 218 and the taxes in general and the state are causing a great deal of heartburn for ratepayers and developers both. You might consider something like, instead of a deficit, a ratepayer investment recapture or something like that. That would better do it, but if you use just about any other words than that, you got problems. And I can see the BIA will probably sue over whatever you do. The 2010, yeah, there was the new master water plan that went in. In 2011, there was the water study capacity fees for wastewater done by Atkins. And it pretty much poured out that, hey, you're gonna have to pay more for sewer in the fourth and phase 4 and phase 5. And not collecting that, I think, has caused a true deficit, and that's gonna be an issue. The other issue is you need to have a much more complete analysis of the recapture of the costs. I think that's about the only way you're gonna get around the developers and the ratepayers. And you'll probably have to do an audit on what's happened with your deferred payment plans, because that was a direct subsidy. And that needs to be addressed. How have we managed to recapture previous investments? How have we taken care of getting all the individual pipelines and reservoir costs recaptured? Because otherwise, it still looks like a deficit. And even when I'm listening to you now are saying, well, we undercharged. Well, that isn't a very happy thing to go on for 9 years, or 8 years. How much phase 5 capacity is left?
I don't know the number.
Well, that question, might have to re-say it. I don't know what you mean. There's phase 5, how much do we need in phase 5?
Have we used up all of our
No.
phase
No,
5?
no, Encina phase 5 capacity, not not growth phase 5. No, we have not.
You haven't touched
No.
it? Or
No.
you
Well,
don't have it?
We're running at about 68% capacity on solids, and probably a little less than that on liquids, of what we purchased at Encina.
And if you look through the deferred payments presentation, it notes directly that ratepayers were subsidizing new developments. in that.
No.
Oh, yeah. And I think the subsidies aspect is something that's gonna be very sensitive. Let's see.
I missed what you were.
Is that true?
That's not true.
Mike, what were you citing? What was the last thing you said?
She was trying to say ratepayers subsidize development.
Yeah,
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
and the deferred payments.
Oh,
So,
you-
so
No.
how are deferred payments and the interest rates recaptured? Do they pay the same rate?
It's the same,
for
it's the
delay?
same question that you answered with BIA. So,
Everything is tracked separately. We've got the replacement fund and the capacity fund.
Right.
Everything that comes in a replacement, it's only for replacement projects in that fund. Capacity is tracked separately as well. We've always had them separate. They've never been together.
Yeah,
They've
but
never
you
been-
made transfers out of
So-
the reserves.
No, let him finish.
No, we never transfer between funds. The only transfer that's done between funds is the interest. So every month we look at it and we say, okay, how much will we earn for the year? And we take a weighted average of the balances, and the interest earnings are taken from capacity and paid to replacement. That's the only transfer that's ever done between replacement and capacity. So they pay the rate that we earn, which is currently 2.36%.
and where is that shown?
In the reserve report, every month it's approved by the board in the board packet.
Mhm.
So you can see the interest earnings that are
And the
earned.
deferred payments, rather than having to do it when they first walk in this building to when they're ready to sell the building, there's no loss there whatsoever because they're not using anything
Right, we never.
until they sell the house. They're not using the water, they're not using the sewer, nothing's being used until it's sold.
You could make the argument that if we collected it earlier, it would be in our best interest, but then the other side would make the argument that it'd be unfair to collect the money earlier because we're
Yeah.
not putting demands on the system.
Right, not using the system.
Does that help clarify that there's no
Right,
subsidy?
but that assumes that we have a fair rate at the time, and that the rate doesn't increase later on.
But if
They
it does
pay the
increase,
fee
they
in
pay
place at
the
the
When it
time of
does-
occupancy, right?
They pay the fee at the time of occupancy, so
Which is
what
higher rather
which
than
is,
lower.
which goes up because it always goes up by E&R.
Right.
Always.
So it goes up. So most of the developers end up paying a higher fee later, and they actually end up paying more of our labor rate because we have to go out there and instead of paying everything and unlocking everything at once, they unlock 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 at a time, and they pay for our overhead, they pay for our costs. So that time that engineering and inspections and meter spends to do that work doesn't get charged to the ratepayer. It gets charged to direct deposit reimbursable accounts from developers. So it actually comes off the ratepayer books and gets charged on the developer books into the deposit accounts.
And the developers pay more
Right, but you
than they
still
would have
have,
if they would have paid for it initially.
but any ratepayer look financial reports and he sees something like $20 million in deficit. That's gonna be an issue, and if there's gonna be a question of, well, we're gonna get another bond to make
No,
new
I
development.
don't
We're not doing no bonds.
Not doing
Okay.
that.
There was talk earlier, so that's out of
I'm not sure
the
when.
issue, question?
Not in this meeting is there a bond talk.
I'm not saying that at some point in time, we won't recommend that we issue debt, but there's nothing on the horizon that we're gonna be approaching the board in the near term as
Okay.
debt issue.
And just to clarify, if we issue debt for capital facility fees, it doesn't touch ratepayers. It's only for developers and capital facility fees, right?
Yes.
Right, thanks.
It's not like a bond like Proposition K, like the school bond.
Now, you mentioned that solids are a bigger issue in waste treatment than the mass of water, is that correct?
Yes, water is just an issue in conveyance, getting the water to the plant during rain events. Solids is really the issue. Basically, all sewer treatment is you're removing the solids from the water. Is really the whole clue.
And sterilizing it.
Depends on what level. I'm not talking about recycled or drinking water.
Right.
Okay. Because shouldn't we be considering some recycling now?
The master plan, the water, wastewater, recycled water master plan, has recycling. We work with the North County Recycled Water Coalition on recycling. We're also looking at water reuse options. Obviously, there's regulations that still need to be set in place, but those are all in not subject to the cap fees. That's all master plan subject.
Okay. And I had one last question. If solids is the issue, shouldn't we adjust our impact fees according to, and distribution according to
So Mike, if you,
More of the solids aspect?
yes, if you look at this number here and look at the master plan lays out the treatment and the cost associated with that, primary being the solids cost, is factored in. So the answer is yes and yes, it's been done, and that's how it's accounted for.
Yeah. We've had a largest project that I know of completed, the interceptor. Can you show some plan as to how that cost is gonna be recaptured? Because that's gonna go right down the highest density developments.
Yeah,
that's
so
coming
the
around.
interceptor project's in the master plan also.
Mhm.
See right there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it.
Oh,
So can you find it for me?
there's a
Right
phase
there.
Right there.
two
The
right there.
SP11.
Right there?
Third
Yeah,
one,
right
yeah.
there. So the interceptor project is in the master plan also. So the part of it's replacement though. So there's an existing 21-inch pipe. So based on the capacity of what a 36 or 42 can hold compared to, ratepayers are paying for some of it. Developers paying. So the developer portion goes into cap fee. The ratepayer portion goes into rates.
Now, does that say go into the general cap fee or the individual project cap fee?
There's only one cap fee.
The general.
It's general cap fee and everybody pays it. Every developer who develops pays it.
Okay, but they pay the diluted blended rate.
There's
not
only
their
one
individual capacity.
There's only one rate. So if you build a house, if you
Right, every house pays $17,000.
so if you build a single family home, this is based on single family homes right now. Obviously, apartments pay, senior housing pays different. But if you build a normal single family home, you're paying based on this proposed fee. Let me go back to this one. It's the staff recommended. You're going to be paying almost $17,000. That covers portions of treatment for your prorated portion, and it covers the interceptor. That recovers all the existing projects, the existing debt, which is phase 5 expansion, which we still have unused capacity on, metal arc expansion, which is still being utilized and still within its useful life, and of course the new stuff that we already talked about. So every developer pays the same amount. It's a one fee. We don't do an individual fee for individual areas. If we do that, some people would have no fee, and some people's fee would be hundreds of thousands of dollars per EDU. So like almost all agencies, we do one fee that covers the whole capital facilities and all the projects that need for growth. And so, does that answer your question?
I understand what your process is.
Okay.
Now, I remember previously we mentioned there was a pro rata adjust fee charge.
Yes. So if you don't build a whole EDU, so if you're building an apartment complex,
You're right.
and so then let's say you have 100 units in the apartment complex, it's not 100 times $25,000 because those units are smaller. They're not a single family owner, so they may be only 70% the water fee. They may be 80 or 90% the sewer fee because the big difference is outdoor irrigation, landscaping, so on and so forth. So we charge each project accordingly for what they're building. So that's why when you look at when you make your examples and you look at the land use and you just go, here's the fee, it doesn't always apply because you got to look at what they're actually building. So there's a uniform plumbing code, it has a standard for the state adopted and also national standard on how you do fixture counts and how much water, and that gives you like your water demands. So in other words, 100 unit apartment complex compared to 100 single family homes, they're going to get charged differently.
So, anything else? Any other questions?
I still think you better have a much better cost fee.
Okay. So no bond and no subsidy, right?
Right?
Okay. On that, we'll close.
Thank you, great job.